Historic Preservation Board meeting, January 20th, 2016, 4 p.m., Sanford City Hall, City Commission Room.
Actually the regularly scheduled but moved up time frame for January 20th, 2016. Staff, can you do roll call, please?
Anna Yeba.
Present.
Hank DeCoste.
Here.
Cheryl Deming.
Here.
Ian Carfagna.
Here.
Tammy Anini.
Here.
Okay, can we, everyone review the previous minutes and vote on the minutes, please? Do you need something?
No, I don't. Oh, here they are.
That's, yeah, just backed out there.
I can't find it.
What?
The minutes. I don't know.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Okay. Any discussion? We'll
Use Anna. Damn.
we'll say Ms. Yeva. So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. That is passed. Thank you. I'd like to thank everybody for showing up, but I want to remind everybody that applicants who are advised that if for any reason they are not satisfied with the outcome of tonight's meeting, they may file an appeal with the City Commission. Staff can help with that process, and also a building permit may be required for any certificate of appropriateness approved this evening. It is the applicant's responsibility to inquire with the building department as to whether or not a permit is required for the approved certificate of appropriateness. Okay, we're going to move on to our first PM1. It's the request to obtain a certificate of appropriateness to replace windows on the first floor to the north and south elevation and replace a door on the south elevation, modify the porch spindles and rails at 201 East 10th Street. Staff, can you read the background, please?
Project is located at 201 East 10th Street in the Old Sanford Residential Historic District. The Seminole County Property Appraiser lists the year of construction as 1910. The applicant has requested approval to replace windows on the first floor, north and south elevations, replace a door on the south elevation, and modify the porch spindles and rails. The proposed windows are wood and sized at 2 feet by 2 feet. There are 3 proposed designs for wood doors as noted in options A, B, and C. At some point in the building's history, the porch was enclosed north elevation. When the porch enclosure was removed, rails and spindles were inserted within a box frame, which is not consistent with the typical construction of porch rails and spindles from this time period. The applicant would like to remove the existing spindles and rails and reconstruct them in a manner that is historically appropriate. And staff's comments are 3 small windows in the south elevation have already been removed, and you can see that in Figure 1. So these 3 small windows here, well, actually 2 small windows and this 1 larger window have been removed. The 1929 Sanford prior insurance map reflects that this area originally functioned as a porch, and the area that I'm speaking of is this area right here. Therefore, these windows were not original. 1 single window on the south elevation was aluminum and was also not original to the building. However, the dimension and orientation of this window opening is consistent with other original windows on the building. The applicant has installed wood windows size 2 foot by 2 foot, which you see in Figure 2, on these elevations as a temporary measure in order to accommodate an interior kitchen rehab. Now that the kitchen rehab is complete, the applicant would like to retain these 2 foot by 2 foot windows, as it is felt that they work best with the new design and layout. So you've got this window here on the south elevation, and you have it also on the east elevation. A door was removed on the south elevation and a fiberglass door temporarily installed, which you see in Figure 3, in order to accommodate an interior bathroom rehab. The 1929 Sanborn Fire Insurance map reflects that this area originally functioned as a porch, therefore the door was not original. The fiberglass door is not consistent with the time period of the structure. For this reason, the applicant has proposed removing this recently installed fiberglass door and replacing it with a new wood door. Figure 4 reflects the applicant's proposed choices of door styles. And the preferred choice the applicant has presented is choice A. B is the second preferred, and C is the third. And then lastly, in regards to the porch, when the porch enclosure was removed prior to the current property ownership, rails and spindles were inserted within a box frame, which was not consistent with the typical construction of porch rails and spindles from this time period. You see that in the next figure, figure 5. And this is the box frame that I'm talking about right here. You can see it in the picture. The applicant would like to remove the existing spindles and rails and reconstruct them in a manner that is historically appropriate. The porch spindles that were part of this box frame are not original to the building, and therefore the applicant would like to install new porch spindles as part of the reconstruction. And this picture actually shows the two different kinds of spindles. So it's my estimation that these were installed in the 80s, because the photograph that we have, or late 80s, mid to late 80s, because the photograph that we have when the porch was enclosed is a 1985 photograph. So I thought that when they opened the porch, they installed these after. So these are not historic spindles. And then again, the boxed frame. I'm just going to show you an image of how the new porch railing will basically look. It will have a proper top rail, a proper bottom rail, and the spindles would be set within the top and bottom rails, as opposed to a boxed-in frame as they are now. The applicant asked me to provide some photos, which I believe Mary passed out, of the two different spindle types.
So he's not going to go with turn spindles, or he is going to go with turn spindles?
The spindles that were there before were turn spindles, and they were replaced for other turn spindles, but the style of the two is different.
Okay.
And he's asking to be able to retain the newer ones, since the ones from the 80s are not original anyhow.
Okay.
Would the applicant like to? One up there? How you doing?
How are you?
Just name and address for the...
Scott Mason, 201 East 10th Street.
Is there anything you want to add to that description, or?
No, it's fairly accurate. The door, my choice is choice A that she mentioned.
Okay.
The rails, when I bought the house, these were on there, but I was missing 3 or 4 of them, so the replacements are very similar. They're just a couple little deviations from it. And those are already on there, so I'd request permission to use the existing ones. If not, then I can put the old ones back on and just have 3 or 4 milled to match these. The 2 windows that were installed, those were built by a historic guy that I use in DeLand, and they're built specifically to match the window that's on the opposite side of the house. And since our last meeting, I did get an engineer, and I've been working with the permitting department to get wind calculations, which they have, and they've approved that.
Are those operational windows or just fixed?
Yeah, they actually fold out.
Oh,
So there's a
okay.
latch system, and they fold out like that.
So on the spindles on the railing, you're going to take off the box?
And I would prefer not to, but I guess to be historically, she's
Right.
requested that I take the box frame out and just attach them to the brick. I mean, the way that you see it is exactly how it was when I bought it,
Right.
other than just the style of the spindle. So she had requested that if I'm going to do it, then take the box frame out and then, just make it just like that, which I can do. It's not a big deal.
Okay.
And just to clarify for the record, that request from me to the applicant was based on the fact that if it had just been kept in place and nothing was touched, he could retain it that way, but because he did make a modification to the porch, then at that time it should have been brought into compliance.
So, to make it clear to me, if he hadn't touched the spindles, then he would have been okay to leave the box there? But some spindles were missing,
There's 3 that were missing.
and so you couldn't match them, so you went out and got new spindles?
Correct, yeah.
So all the spindles out there right now are all brand new. So that whole thing was removed.
Okay. It was all taken off, spindles put on, put back again.
Right.
Well, I'll make a motion if nobody else has any questions. I move to approve the request to obtain a C of A to replace windows on the first floor, replace the door on the south elevation, windows on the first floor, north and south elevation, replace the door on the south elevation, and modify the porch spindles and rails, remove the box, part of the railing system at 201 East 10th Street, based on the finding that the proposed scope of work is consistent with the purpose and intent of Schedule S and complies with the design guidelines in Schedule S.
We have to include this in our motion?
Yeah.
One of his
Yeah, let's
choices, or
do-
is that applicant's choice?
Oh, the first one was.
Hey, you just modify, can you look at staff's recommendation at the very end of it and just modify your motion to include that last sentence? Start with specifically.
Specifically, the new windows, doors, and porch rails, spindles are in character with the architectural style of the building, will not adversely affect the surrounding historic district.
To answer your question, the 3 doors are in character with his choice.
Okay.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It passes.
Great, thank you so
Thank
much.
you very much. Move on to PM2. Request to obtain a certificate of appropriateness to remove a rear porch at 1100 South Myrtle Avenue. Staff, can you read the background, please?
The project is located at 1100 South Myrtle Avenue in the Old Sanford Residential Historic District. The Seminole County Property Appraiser lists the year of construction as 1913 with modifications in 1950. The applicant requested approval to remove a rear porch on the west elevation. Based on the way it is connected to the building and the difference in construction techniques, the porch appears to be an extension of a smaller original porch. The porch is in disrepair, and rather than repair this element of the building, which is not historic, the applicant would like to remove it. Staff's comments are that it appears that the area proposed for removal is not original. It is in poor condition and will require extensive modifications to be repaired to a safe condition. The figure that I actually included in your attachment is not correct. So Mary has or will be passing around
She has.
the correct figures. I'm going to put them up. Figure 1 is a detail from the 1929 Sanborn fire insurance map. And as you see here, where the arrow is, that is the original rear porch, or at least the circa 1929 rear porch. At some point in time, the second porch was added onto that porch, and that is the porch that the applicant is requesting to remove. So figure 2 shows that looking east, and figure 3, you can see that there were later additions that are not reflected on the 1929 Sanborn map. So at some point in time, you had a porch back here, and then they built an addition built an addition and bumped out the wall again here. So this is all kind of scabbed on and tacked on.
Yeah.
The applicant wants to retain that portion. She's not looking to make any changes there at this time. And this is a photograph taken standing on the new portion of porch, looking toward the old. So you could see the old reframing and how it ties into the new. And here's another detail of that. So you can see the more modern decking and framing numbers, which have been sistered up. So anything that you see here that's in the new wood, that's unpainted, is what she's requesting to remove. So this whole section of porch. And this is in response to a code violation. She recently purchased the property, and she's trying to remedy the code violations. Our original discussion was she wanted to know what she had to do to repair it, and after I did a site visit and I looked at it, I actually recommended to her that she just remove it because it isn't original and it's going to be costly to repair when it's not really necessary.
Well, it doesn't look like there's any hurricane clips in it anyway, so it doesn't look like it's done right.
That's another thing. I checked the permit records, and we do not have record of a permit being pulled for this work. And if you look at the base here, the piers are not even sound. It's really a mess. So staff is recommending the HPB grant approval to remove the rear porch at 1100 Myrtle Avenue based on a finding that the proposed alterations are consistent with the purpose and intent and complies with the design guidelines and Schedule S. Specifically, the porch does not appear to be original, is in poor condition, and removal of the porch will not adversely impact the architectural style of the building or the surrounding historic district.
Is the applicant here? Come on up, please.
Hi, Susan Verzon, 417 West 2nd Street.
Hi. Is there anything you wanted to add to that description? Or
No.
no? Oh, all right.
She covered it.
All right.
I'll move to,
Just real quick.
go ahead.
Sorry.
You got a question?
Yeah, I had a question. Just obviously removing that porch person, will that get her out of the code violation?
She has a couple of other things that she needs to take care of, but we've done a development order in-house, so she has associated timelines for those repairs, and she plans to have it pretty much done by April 1.
Yeah. That was it.
And she received a C of A for those other repairs, and I could show you that
Okay.
C of A if you'd like to see it. It was an administratively approved C of A.
Okay. Go ahead, Hank.
I'll move to approve the request to obtain a certificate of appropriateness to remove a rear porch at 1100 South Myrtle Avenue based on a finding that the proposed scope of work is consistent with the purpose and intent of Schedule S and complies with the design guidelines in Schedule S. Specifically, the porch does not appear to be original, is in poor condition, and removal of the porch will not adversely impact the architectural style of the building or the surrounding historic district.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It passes. Congratulations. Okay. Let's move on to PM3. Request for a certificate of appropriateness to install a supported aluminum awning in the service area adjacent to the alley at 120 South Park Avenue. And staff, can you read the background, please?
The project is located at 120 South Park Avenue in the Downtown Commercial Historic District. The Seminole County Property Appraiser's website lists the year of construction as 1938 with alterations in 1965. The building served as a Greyhound bus station for many years and is one of only 2 Art Deco buildings in the downtown. The applicant received approvals from the Historic Preservation Board in 2014 through 15 for modifications to the building. The rehabilitation project is underway, and the applicant has submitted a permit revision to provide a covering over the mop sink in the service area. And this request is due to building code requirements. The applicant would like to install a supported aluminum awning in this area, and you see that in your figures. The applicant has proposed to conceal the aluminum columns with a wood cladding and stucco. Schedule S details height and depth requirements for awnings on primary facades and customer entrances, but does not detail requirements for awnings in service areas. And one of the things that I would like the applicant to clarify is, in our discussion, it was stated that the aluminum columns would be wood-clad with stucco, but I note that on the C of A application, he didn't actually write stucco, so I want to make sure that everyone is on the same page with how those columns are being proposed to be finished out.
Is the applicant here?
My name's Steve Smith. I'm representing Mr. Hawkins. Yeah, we don't have a problem with the wood-clad stucco to match. This is not something we wanted to put up. It's something that Hope Duncan with Environmental is requiring us to put up because of the mop sink and the floor drain. She doesn't want stormwater going into the sewer system, so they're processing more water. So this is the whole reason this thing even incurred. It wasn't on the original plan, but this was a way to keep her happy and hopefully everybody else happy. So, yeah, we'll do what, we'll get with, historic. We'll make sure that everything is appropriate, and we'll take care of the cladding and the stucco and make sure everything's done accordingly.
Chairman, I just wanted to add one item because I did have a board member call me today and ask this question about the area that it's going in and it being aluminum. This is actually not going to be attached to the historic structure. This is in the service area where the new wall was constructed to cover, like he said, the mop sink and the floor drain.
Yeah,
So
it's totally in the back alley.
It's not being attached to the historic structure. It's
Okay.
up against it, but not attached to it.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve the request for a certificate of appropriateness to install support aluminum awning in the surface area adjacent to the alley at 120 South Park Avenue, based on the finding that the proposed alterations do not conflict with the purpose and intent of Schedule S, as outlined in this above staff report. The posts will be clad in wood and stucco.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
There you go. Thank you. Okay. We are going to move here on to PM4. This is going to be a little bit, a little more unconventional, as it's not a standard PM in its approval or denial by an applicant. There's going to be opportunity for everyone in the audience to speak if they would like to speak on this. The board members will have an opportunity to speak before we really kind of get into it. I'm going to say a couple words before we get into it. I would really appreciate that if you do speak, let's be constructive. And any comments that you might have, I would really appreciate that this may get to a point where, I wouldn't use the word emotional, but we're trying to, with this PM, we're going to try to resolve some things and come to some conclusions as a board. So this is probably the first time this board has done this. So I'm going to really try to keep us moving in the right direction and do it systematically, and as well as give everybody an opportunity to speak if they'd like to. But let's if we do speak, let's really try to make it constructive in the process. Okay. So I'm going to start. I think a couple of board members want to speak as well, but the past couple of months I've been reflecting after our meetings here, and a couple of items kind of stuck in my mind, and I started doing some research and trying to understand what our purpose is as a board, and what our requirements are, and really what we're doing here. And as those thoughts kind of really became, started to formate those, I decided I was just write it down in a letter. And I'm going to read this letter that actually I'm going to read it into the record, and would like to submit this letter to the commission, or at least make them aware of it. Okay? So I'm going to, the way I wrote this is really kind of conversational, so please apologize. It's really kind of addressed to all who may be concerned. Recently, a few building and homeowners came before the HPB to address changes made to the exterior of their buildings. In those appearances, collectively, they had stated to the effect, I know I made changes to the building, but it looks better than it did before, or I've invested a lot of money in doing so. And in a normal circumstance, a statement like that would have been met with a congratulatory response, applauding the building owner for taking pride in their building and making an effort to beautify the neighborhood. Unfortunately, this is not one of those circumstances. The building owner's buildings reside in a local historic district that is governed by a set of rules called Schedule S, designed to protect that building's exterior. Making modifications to an exterior of a building governed by Schedule S often requires approval by the HPB, a quasi-judicial board consisting currently of 5 appointed members of the community. I've heard many times homeowners or building owners say it's not hurting anyone, or it's my money, or it looks better than it did before. And these statements could not make me any more disheartened. But who's the victim in this case? It's history, character, and community identity. The city of Sanford cared so much about these items that they created a board of appointed volunteers to come together, create a set of guidelines, and meet on a regular basis to govern over those regulations, as well as decide as whether or not to approve variances on a case-by-case basis. This board is the Sanford Historic Preservation Board, whose determinations are legal judgments subject to appeal by City Sanford, the City Council. Not to sound fantastical, but history, character, and community, the identity, they need a voice to be heard. And HPB is that voice. Without it, slowly but quite surely, the history, charm, and character that defines Sanford would be built away, one exterior modification at a time. One of the core duties of HPB is to determine whether or not a variance in Schedule S would be considered in character with the surrounding neighborhood and consistent with the purpose and intent of Schedule S. These determinations are to be done without personal opinion or prior prejudice. It's not a small task, I might add, but nonetheless, it's what the applicant, the community, and the buildings themselves deserve. So in closing, modifying the exterior of a building that is not in character and not consistent with the purpose and intent of Schedule S, or in simpler terms, changing the outside of a building in a way that simply alters its previous look or character, is one of the main reasons we exist. Regardless of the cost of modifications, the perceived aesthetic improvement of the building owner, by the building owner, or any other outside factor, we have an obligation and a duty to stand up and protect history, character, and community identity that the HPB and Schedule S were created for. Thank you. So I know that there's a couple board members that would like to speak.
Yes,
so.
Mr. Chairman, if I may pose a question, I would like to propose it first to Mr. Root. Question: if a board member, a historic preservation board member, had conversations with commissioners prior to the January 11th meeting, is this cause for them to recuse themselves this evening?
I don't recommend. No.
And yes, in the last meeting, we could hardly hear you also on the recording.
Okay. In all my trainings, I always recommend that board members of subservient, and I mean that in a hierarchical way, not, like slavery or anything like that, and that board members of a subservient body not engage in communications with the local governing body, whether it's a county commission or a city council or city commission or whatever, and vice versa. That that the local governing body not engage to the lower decision makers. Mm-hmm. But that's my recommendation. I think it's not good for the process. but that doesn't necessarily result in somebody having to recuse themselves.
Okay.
Someone should recuse themselves if they cannot be fair in adjudicating the matter before them and cannot look at the matter objectively or have taken a position prior to the decision to be made.
Okay, and then I guess my second question is if a board member was advocating for an applicant, that is also, what about that?
If a person's advocating for an applicant or against an applicant, that would indicate to me that there was bias and the matter couldn't be objectively looked at the hearing.
Okay. And so, like, my next then question is to each board member, if each of you individually would answer the question for me, and for the record, I should say, not for me, but for the record. Tammy, did you speak to any board members prior to the January 11th meeting about the applicant?
No.
Ian, did you speak to commissioners?
Commissioners?
Any commissioners about?
Yes, I had a brief conversation when I ran into Mr. Mayor Jeff Triplett. There was like one comment made, but we did not have an extensive conversation. But yes, I had talked to Jeff prior.
Cheryl?
No.
Okay.
Yes.
With who?
Patty Mahaney.
Okay, and I did not speak with anyone. I just wanted that on the record. And,
Can I interrupt real quick?
sure.
Just to be clear, in this particular case, you're really not in this particular matter,
Yeah.
this agenda item, you're not really adjudicating.
Yeah.
What you're doing is, the city commission had numerous options when it heard this matter on the appeal of your November 18th decision on January 11th. And one of those options, the option that it elected to do, was to ask you what remedy you thought would be appropriate if the appeal was sustained. Excuse me,
Denied.
if the appeal was denied. If the appeal was denied, what would be the remedy? So this is really the city commission seeking guidance or input or for you to articulate your views on the remedy. You're really not adjudicating the certificate of appropriateness. You did that just fine, legally, in your denial of development order. So.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, that's it for now.
Anyone else? want to
Yeah, I just want to ask Lonnie a question. If a case comes before the board and we're discussing the case and one of the board members is in disagreement with other board members about the case, is that automatically assume that that board member is an advocate for the applicant? I mean, we can't have a discussion.
I don't need to answer that question. The answer is obviously no. I mean, I've seen people act like they oppose. You've seen it too,
Yeah.
all of you. Looks like someone's going to be in favor of something or oppose something, and before you know it, they voted the opposite direction of what they were taught, the way it looked like they were going to vote. So the appearance, that means not much of anything.
I think the reason I asked the question is because you've always advised us to not speak at commission meetings, which I agree. We are part of a board, and we should not go in front of commission and say anything. So that was my question, because you were so specific, not once, twice, but I think 3 times you mentioned it.
I've said it again today.
Yeah,
I'll say it. I'll
that
always say it.
we should not do that. And so when I was made aware that it had happened, to me it was disturbing that commissioners were called at home and talked to. That was very disturbing to me. So.
I don't know anything about that.
Tammy? Anything? Nope.
Are you, you also said that, like Anna just said, we shouldn't talk to commissioners. Does that go for written letters to the commissioners also, or is that just oral you're talking about?
Any communication, but if you're talking about the letter that was just written,
Yeah.
that's, quite frankly, that's exactly what the city commission wants from you guys.
But I thought they wanted it from the board, not from individual. So we could all write letters to the commission with different opinions.
I understood that to be the chairman's view on the agenda item before you. So that's the way I understood it. If I was wrong, I'm wrong, but that's the way I understood it.
You're correct.
Well, I know it's the chairman's view, but So any of us can
speak
submit
your
a
mind.
We all
letter.
haven't reached consensus or anything yet that I've heard, so. I mean,
We haven't even started the PM yet.
I realize that. I'm just saying.
No, you're free to have an opinion, and you're free to voice your.
Send a letter
your-
also to be read at the commission meeting?
Well, you have to understand, this letter, and if you read this letter, is nondescript on any PM whatsoever that we've discussed. It is just my personal opinion on
Right.
the rules and regulations on how we should govern as a board. So,
But it's a letter that's going to be read at the next commission meeting.
Well, as one of the two people who are going to be the messengers of your message today, and therefore are subject to being killed like the Roman centurion, you know? The way we would frame what you say is, let's say, well, first of all, the idea before you is the remedies are from one extreme to the other. You know, it's just not fair. Don't do anything, Cindy's, to tear it all out, Cindy's, and fix it, or something in between. Okay? Whatever you guys as a consensus develop, that's what we would bring forward to the city commission, and we would say, at this point, and by the way, the chairman had these views. That would be our message, and it would be taken for what it's worth.
I do want to correct you, please, if I could. This letter isn't my view on a PM that's before us, or my views on PM4. This is my view on past multiple instances and the preconceived notion of what I believe to be what our duties are not. So that's really kind of it's a statement of what I believe our responsibilities as a board and who we're responsible to in that reflective.
And I didn't say that. What I said, well, because I would have said in the chairman's view of the role of the board,
of course,
is as follows.
Right. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to kind of, and correct me, Mr. Groot, if I am a little inaccurate in this description, but what PM4, and I know we can read the synopsis, but I kind of want to make it maybe a little plainer, is the City Commission is asking for, as you put it, potential remedies, if ones exist, for each item, as we go through each item and define each violation, and then as a board, think outside the box, maybe create a discussion with staff and potentially come up with solutions if they should exist. Okay? Right. So, first, before we read into PM4, I also want to state this. Is everyone here on the board in agreement that the violation is present as we are reading PM4 as it results to Cindy's dance studio?
So can I interrupt there?
Yeah.
Okay. And I don't plan on doing anything more about presenting the item than what I've done.
Right.
I'm not going to read it. It's your, but the question you just asked, that's decided. You're not here to change your development order.
I understand
The denial of the development order speaks for itself.
Okay.
So the only thing you're here to discuss is the remedy.
Okay.
And it could be, the remedy is tear it all out.
Okay.
Don't tear anything out, or like you just said, item by item, you could do this for that, and you could do nothing for this, and take it item by item.
Okay. Thank you. All right, then, staff, let's try to first, I guess, read the background, and then we'll try to go through these items on a case by case. But let's just read some background synopsis for the record, please.
Before I read this, I just want to state for the record that I did not prepare the staff report. The staff report was prepared by Russ Gibson, who's, of course, the planning director, and Lonnie Groot here, our assistant city attorney.
Okay.
With regard to the denial development order issued by the Historic Preservation Board at its meeting of November 18, 2015, relating to 119 South Magnolia Avenue has been received. The City Commission, at its appeal hearing on January 11, 2016, determined that the appeal hearing would be continued until January 25, 2016, I requested from the Historic Preservation Board an articulation as to what is not acceptable in terms of the property and what are the appropriate remedies relative to the property based upon the action of the HPB. The background as to this matter is the same as presented in the staff report, which is attached. That was presented to the Historic Preservation Board at its November 18, 2015 meeting. The denial development order that resulted from the HPB's meeting of November 18th is also attached. The City Commission at its appeal hearing on January 11, 2016 determined that the appeal hearing would be continued until January 25, 2016, and requested from the HPB an articulation as to what is not acceptable in terms of the property and what are the appropriate remedies relative to the property based upon the action of the HPB. In Section 8 of Schedule S of the City of Sanford Land Development Regulations relates to C of A Certificate of Appropriateness and related matters. Specifically, subsection 8.0H of Schedule S provides in pertinent part as follows. Violations. Should a property owner or tenant fail to obtain a certificate of appropriateness prior to making improvements, modifications to a structure or property located within a historic district or a historic landmark, or if a property owner or tenant performs work that is not in compliance with an already approved C of A, the city shall take the following action. 1, the property owner shall be required to apply for a certificate of appropriateness and shall be required to pay an application fee in addition to any other fee required by the land development fee schedule. 2, the board shall review the application as if it was a new alteration and not consider the fact that the alteration has already been initiated or completed. 3, if the certificate of appropriateness is denied, the owner shall comply with the regulations even if it requires partial or total demolition of the improvements already made. Failure to obtain a C of A prior to undertaking work and or a violation to an approved certificate of appropriateness does not constitute grounds for economic hardship. When a certificate of appropriateness is necessary in order to respond to a code enforcement notice or citation, the property owner shall make application for a certificate of appropriateness within 10 business days of the notice of citation, and the violation shall be remedied within 45 days from the date of issuance of the certificate of appropriateness, unless the Historic Preservation Board or the administrative official grants a longer period of time upon a finding that unusual circumstances prevent or legal proceedings necessitate the remedy from occurring in a timely manner. When an obligation is imposed by the schedule or a prohibited act is set forth in the schedule, it is prohibited and unlawful to fail to conform to the provisions of the schedule. Violations may be enforced by appropriate proceedings before the board, by code enforcement action before the city's code enforcement special magistrate, or by any other means available under the controlling provisions of law. The city may seek any and all remedies available under controlling law, and the city manager may take any and all actions that may be necessary to enforce the provisions of this schedule. And lastly, the issue that is presented to the Historic Preservation Board is what are the acceptable remedies in terms of the property based upon the decision of the HPB. And it is recommended that the HPB discuss what are the acceptable remedies in terms of the property located at 119 South Magnolia Avenue, based upon the decision of the Historic Preservation Board in issuing its denial development order on November 18, 2015. The attachments that you have there are the November 18, 2015 HPB staff report, the denial development order. You've also been provided with the City Commission agenda packet from their January 11, 2016 meeting. And as well, Mary passed out some figures. You've got figure 1 and 2, and then you have...
She's currently.
Okay. And then figure 2, you'll note I broke it down into 2.1, 2.2, et cetera, and that way you can go through each one of the items that was altered on the building. I was just trying to provide you with a little bit of structure for your discussion. And I believe
big pictures.
that's all. Was that all we had printed? Oh, okay, there also should be some historic photographs to give you a frame of reference. In that packet, there's a image from 1910, right around the time the building was constructed. Then you've got the 1926 image, I believe a 1985 image, and a current day image.
Okay, we'll go through figure 1 at a time. I also I guess you probably did clarify, and Lonnie, you did clarify as well, but just want to remind the board that any recommendations that we make are merely recommendations. The building owner is not required to act on what we are providing, because we are merely providing recommendations to the city council. So whatever our options are, they are, again, suggestions or suggestions to the city council. Okay. All right, so let's... right here. Oh, those are in the packet itself. All right, we'll start, obviously, Figure 1. Top image was taken 2014 prior to the project commencement, and image 2 is on the bottom of that, taken November 2015 after the completion of work. So, Figure 1, the Figure 1 just is a before and after, so Figure 2 is where we start with the, okay. So go into Figure 2. In Figure 2, Item 1 is, you have that up there? Okay, that's the decorative trim detail has been modified. Okay.
Oh.
So we have the extension of that bottom trim piece sent over to the, and I'm bad with directions, is that the south side of the wall? What's south wall? Okay. So, thank you.
And Chairman, this is
All I know is
where
up. That's all.
this is where it might be useful to use the other figures. The 2.1 just will focus
I think she
solely
misses.
on that area. So if you see any,
After those first two pages,
Uh-huh.
individual items.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Oh, I see. Got it. Okay. So Figure 2 is just all of them together, and then you can go individually separately. Okay, that's fine. All right, so then we are on Figure 2.1, decorative trim detail modified. So we have historical photos, you said, right, in our packet
yes.
of the building prior to this, right? Right here.
They were in your November
Yeah, the
18th
packet I'm
packet, so if you
looking-
keep
okay.
flipping through.
Can't tell. Was there a... See, to me, it's a little unclear, that area in these photographs. You can't see on that south side of the wall what was there. Looks like,
What year are you talking about?
I'm looking at, in the packet, I'm looking at
1910?
Figure 1, yeah, the 1910, and then also the 1985. So 1910, obviously, it was some type of trim, whether it was, I can't really tell what it is, or whether it was a, I don't know, back then, did they do a brick trim, or did they do like a,
It doesn't look like
stucco, kind of like, or a,
It doesn't look like 1985.
right, yeah, right. But I'm just looking at the, what I'm trying to find is, in 1910,
Right.
did they wrap that around that little corner section? Or did they do it in 1985 and change it? I can't even tell from the 1985 if that bottom trim piece wraps or doesn't wrap.
Right. But the top, it doesn't jut up in the corner in 1910. It just,
Right.
It just,
Right, so that whole...
the whole corner unit, it was not there in 1910.
But what we're looking at really is that bottom trim piece of the molding decoration was added on that south side of the wall. So I'm trying to see in the design of 1985, was that similar, or was that a style? I just can't see because maybe the photograph of the sun. I can't see if that is flat.
Is that
It does look a little,
what piece are you talking about?
right here, right here.
Little tiny.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about, just that one item, figure 2.1.
It looks like it's there, but it's hard to tell.
This doesn't make sense.
Right,
That looks like something's missing.
right,
This looks like the picture,
right,
but it is hard to tell.
yeah.
But is 1985 historic?
Well, even though this is 1985, if this was done in 1940 and it's been that way for 60 years, it's the majority of the historic portion of the,
Nothing looks like 1910.
But we're also, we
Yeah,
have
I
to
know.
keep consideration when you take off something, the way you have to put it back, so,
Well, then it should look like 1910 then.
well, it should.
1985 is 1985. That's not 50 years, and we don't know what it looked like in 47.
Right, so I'm trying to find a historical reference of that piece being wrapped around.
Wait, there isn't any.
Well, I can't tell.
Well, that's 1985. That's not even historical. That's my point.
Right, but I'm trying to find
Something.
pictorial version of that wrapping to say, well, I see it in a picture here.
But,
You know what I'm saying?
But the point's moot. Even if you see it in, let's say you see it in the picture there.
Right?
That's not historic. That's 1985. That's my point.
Right, but
She should go back all the way to 1910. That's the historic.
Chairman, may I make a suggestion
Sure.
for the board members? When you're looking at a historic structure, as we have had various trainings and all, you usually want to look at the iteration of the building that has the most significance. And what I mean by that is what version of the building has been in place the longest.
that's why.
So when you're doing rehab work, you should settle on that time period and focus on that. The 1910 version of the building, as Tammy pointed out, it was totally different. And already by 1926, or circa 1926, it
The
was
jets were there.
significantly altered to this that you see here. And I have that date of roughly 1926 from the Sanford Museum.
Can we
If
look at
you-
that?
You see it?
If you look at that carefully,
wrapped?
the area in
I-
question
Yeah, but
that
I
you're
can't
talking about, two bands are wrapped and the bottom band is not.
I can't see that on 1926. Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's a historic photo. That's the best
So-
quality that we
Yeah.
have.
So we're discussing, how much is that wrap? Is that like 12 inches? I mean,
Sure.
that's what we're,
Well, again, we're going to take
Oh,
each
sure.
item separately.
yeah,
but,
so
yeah,
so if she took off 12 inches of wrap, that would suffice, apparently. Right?
correct.
Okay.
But was it purposely missing that, or did it fall off, at some point in the last however many years? And the building was in extreme disrepair.
Yeah, we're trying to look at this. I mean, it's
If it was there.
a little unclear.
It's hard to
It
tell.
is really unclear whether it's there or not. To me, it looks like it isn't there, and this is 1926, so if it fell off, it's been off for almost
Majority of the time.
90 years. So, that's what I'm trying to find. I'm trying to see
It
is
looks like it's there.
here. It looks like it's there, but
That's
then
a different side.
yeah, that's 85 though. It's the other
It's a
side,
different side of the building.
right?
Chairman, may I note just one more
Sure.
thing? I'm sorry.
No, you can note as much as you like. This is again an unconventional process, so we welcome your input.
I think it's important for the board to keep in mind that while this is something that you're looking at that's after the fact, you want to consider it as if it was not after the fact. And what I mean by that is if the applicant had proposed these alterations to you ahead of time
Sure.
and not have done them, would you or would you have not approved it? And what is the basis of that approval in Schedule S?
Agreed. So, yeah, so what I'm trying to ascertain is if the applicant came before me today and said, I want to add this 12-inch banding on the outside of this, I want to try to find a historical reference of a photograph that had it existing to say, okay, or I don't see it anywhere, and render that verdict. So that's what I'm trying, at least personally, I'm trying to see if I can see in the previous design whether it was an intentional or what we can figure out from the historic records to see. And looking in Figure 3 from 1985. With the shading and the sun, it's
hard.
it's hard to tell, but I can't tell if that stucco is flush with the brick. You would have to imagine that. Can you blow that up a little bit? The one you have on there right now, as much as you can. Do we see a shadow on top of that brick? Because to me, it looks like it's wrapped around.
It does look like it's wrapped around.
That to me looks like it's wrapped around.
Yeah.
So in my case, if I look at this and see that 26 is similar to 85, I would have to say it looked like it was there before. So because it looked like it was there before and I see reference to that, then in my,
Doesn't that corner look like the long corner does look like brick?
it does look, again, I don't know how they stuccoed up to the brick and made it flush. I'm not really sure how they did that. I really can't.
But it looks like it's wrapped around because it's white. It should be, right below it is it's a grayish color.
Yeah. Can you blow up a little bit more, Christine, please? Keep going. Keep going to zoom in on it. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. If we can go. You can't go anymore?
It looks like brick.
Maximum 5.
Well, yeah, the brick, but I'm talking about the panel piece on top. I see a shadow between the
So the band goes
brick
around
and, yeah, so it does look to me like it would go around.
Agree.
So we agree on that?
Well, it's my personal opinion that for this item, because I can't clarify it in the 1926 image, but the 26 looks similar to the 85, and I see it in the 85, then I would say that it fits.
My question is, when they did the renovation, I also agree that it went around. My question is, was it done with EFS?
That's the material question.
Well,
is
two questions.
Right.
So,
Well, first I want to, I guess we can talk about the material, but I think as far as the style of it,
yes.
I think I would render my opinion to say that is in character. That wrapping style would be in character. Can we blow that one up too, Christine?
Yeah.
That's again in the 80s.
Can't tell.
Yeah, you can't really tell. It's hard to see, but
And with the other one.
it does look like there's a slight shadow between the edge of the brick and the.
There.
It's like a mess.
Yeah. So for lack of.
But on the prior one, it did wrap around, so.
And what year is this?
Yeah, because the brick
You
is
know.
covered.
Yeah, you can see clearly there it wraps.
Yeah, it wraps around.
Okay, so I'm going to say my opinion is the style is in character, but how do we ascertain what product was used or what material was used for that? So if that material was an unauthorized material, my remedy would be to replace that material with approved material, but keep the style. And I'm only speaking for myself here, so again, everybody can again, unconventional, so everybody can render their opinion, but if I had to render individually, I would say I think the style's in character, but I'll call into question what material was used.
Be more
You
efficient.
found, didn't you find in your denial of development order that the material was?
Well, no, that material, the EFS, wait, let me correct you. We found in the denial that EFS was used on the building, but we never defined exactly where the material was used. So using EFS obviously is not appropriate, and that's so if in this circumstance, if this material is a synthetic material, it would have to be, in my opinion, would have to be removed and replaced by a approved material. But the style, I believe, is consistent. And that's my opinion. If anybody else wants to give their...
Do we,
Well, we're not making motions. I think that we can maybe vote on it. Consensus. I mean, is anybody...
disagree?
Might be efficient to come to a consensus as to
Let's do
whether
that.
or not the synthetic material will be able to stay regardless of the,
Would the applicant know if that was done with that?
Probably the contractor.
The contractor might know, the applicant may know, but again, I don't think that's effective. I think that it's really,
Okay.
we're providing to the commission what our suggestions or remedies would be on each item, and,
That
yeah,
material was used in that area. We don't approve that material in that area.
well, what we're, here, all we're looking at, all we're looking at is that 24-inch section. We can't call into question the material
That's right,
above it,
because we've
on the
already
left of it.
ruled
We've
on
already
it.
rendered on that.
Okay, I got
So
it.
that 24-inch section on the top south jut, I would have a personal opinion to say that that is consistent with the style and intent or the character. But if the material is a synthetic material, my opinion would be to remove that material and put an approved material on it. Is that the board's consensus?
Well, I disagree with the material,
Well, again,
You do?
you disagree with removing the material?
and I present the comment to my right.
I'm sorry?
No, my.
Okay.
My opinion is we allow epoxy to be filled in rotted wood parts. We don't require all the time that the people have to take the entire piece of wood off and replace it. A lot of times we allow them to fill in with plastic.
Right. But
That's just my opinion.
and that's great. No, and I understand that. But again, we have to look at this as if the work had not been done. We have to look at this to say, okay, well, if they were in front of us, would we have approved it? And we're trying to, again, this is unconventional, so it's the first time for everybody
Well,
here.
I'm just kicking ideas around. The idea, if they were before us, the contractor would probably be before us. And you could ask the contractor, can you replicate it with traditional stucco, or will that?
Well, that's not stucco. That looks like I know enough about construction to know that a piece of wood can be put over that and stuccoed and it to look consistent. So I'm sure that
Stuck
that
to like the original.
to make it look like the original, it doesn't have to be synthetic material. So, do we need a unanimous, or do we need?
Can I jump in now?
Sure.
Because the way you're going works good. Let me suggest what we heard just happened,
Yeah.
and then what you can do after you're through with the 10. Okay? What we heard just happen now was there was a consensus of 4 out of 5 of you that the style was appropriate, and that if the material wasn't right, it should be taken out and redone.
Mm-hmm.
But the percent, it was a 4-to-1 consensus. I suggest that you keep going like that through all 10 items, and then allow the public to speak.
Okay, that's fine.
And then, based upon what the public says, if you want to public
Revise,
will
all
then know what your consensus was, item
Okay.
by item, and they can come speak to what you did. And if you feel like changing your consensus on a particular item, you can.
Okay.
If you don't, you don't.
Okay, well then 4-to-1, we'll leave that as our consensus on figure 2.1. Let's move to 2.2. Okay, so this was the concealed beam was extended and covered. It was concealed and then extended. I'm not really just talking about the material first. I'm just talking about the architectural change first, and we'll talk about the material. So basically, what was the original steel beam was covered, concealed, and then extended it to the end of the wall. Okay. We have a good picture of this beam, right, Christine? From I think this is. I'm going to make an assumption here that even in the 85, that steel beam handled the overhang that is in the 85 picture. That's really kind of where.
That's why it ends there.
That's why it was there. Was
The function of that beam was to support the canopy.
the canopy? Yeah, the overhang. What was there prior? Nothing, right?
Well, I've got for you on the overhead, this is a November 2014 photo, which shows the beam a little clearer. so from multiple angles. I also added to the file, per the request of one of the board members, examples of this type of a beam on other buildings. And this is the building where Washburn Imports is. You can see that same type of beam.
Can you blow that up so everybody can see that better?
So that beam was for two purposes, correct? Structural for the canopy and also architectural detail.
An architectural detail, correct.
It's holding up their canopy then, right?
And also at the fire station, you can see that beam here. The fire station, keep in mind that this building was stuccoed and had some treatment also before the historic districts were created. But you could see that same kind of beam here. And you could see the bolts, fasteners, and likely the remaining hardware from when the canopy was removed. And I believe that was the applicant's intent when she covered it, because if you listen to the meeting audio from the November meeting, she stated that it was rough and unfinished and uneven, and that there was bolts and things out of there. So, but I was asked to provide these photos of other buildings that have this detail. So these are two right in our downtown.
Can we go back to 2.2? Thank you. And you can blow up the bottom portion, please. Might as well just go to 100 all the way up. So we got to get a good detailed look at it as close as we can. Trying to see.
Didn't like that.
I'm just really trying to see how it was, the way it was covered, because it doesn't look like it was just filled in and flattened, because there's that little jut coming out of it, right?
On the top.
The top. There was a ledge was created. Am I correct? I'm assuming, yeah. That it wasn't filled in and then stuccoed over to make the whole thing flat, or even with it just created a shelf edge.
Well,
Was that done around the front as well?
The slate bottom edge, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that done around the front of the building?
Yes,
All the way
everything
around?
that you see on your figure 2, that same condition exists on the front. So each item, with the exception of one, and then the latter items, I think 6, 7, 8. But anything in this area was replicated on the front as well. So this detail wraps around the front of the building, the west elevation.
And Ian, you're correct. There's a shelf, but the underneath part where you don't think it's filled in, that was covered smooth. I'm guessing styrofoam is what I saw when I walked by that day, because it's
So
smooth
it's
now.
flat.
It doesn't have bolts.
It's flat. It doesn't have an edge coming out of the bottom, right? So it's just a flat
It
piece.
has a little edge.
So is it like a reverse L, upside down L, with the
Exactly.
bottom being flat?
Yeah.
No edge. You can't see the beam at all.
Right.
That's just a flat piece.
That's right.
It's just created a ledge.
Well, this is not really an architectural detail. That was the structural for the canopy.
It's both.
Well, the problem is that she extended it,
Yeah.
the length of the building.
Which changes the layout and design of the building.
It what? Changed the
Yes.
design of the building.
Well, yeah, I
Changed
mean-
the look of the building.
Well, look. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think
So would we have had allowed that?
I would not have. I would have.
I mean, to me, it doesn't alter the historic nature of the building just by extending it.
I disagree, because with the historic, if you're looking at the photos from all the other buildings,
Errors?
that feature with that exposed beam is in character with a lot of other buildings. So multiple buildings have that same exposed beam style, which you showed at least three other ones. So I would disagree with that, Hank.
I just have an issue with the extension, because she's embellished the building now with an additional detail
Yeah.
that was not originally there.
Well, the beam wasn't originally there, as you know.
Right, there was nothing back here. You
Right.
can see from the 1985 picture.
I mean, the other part that, when they took the canopy down, the
Right.
beam was exposed, but that was not originally part of the building. So
Right.
theoretically, if you're going to take the canopy down, which was already down, but if you're going to make any alteration to that beam, theoretically, she should have taken the beam out.
Well, then you
If
can
you
go-
want to go
Correct.
strictly by the S-code.
Correct, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. She could.
So we would have made an exception,
Well,
right? If she came to us and said, I'd like to make changes to that beam, I want to stucco it, are we disturbed that she stuccoed it, or are we disturbed that she extended it?
well, I think there's a couple components to it. I think the first component we're discussing is the extension.
But I mean, if you're going to work on the building, the facade, then she should have taken the whole beam down, because it's not part of the original
Well, yeah,
building.
it-
But it's been there
I
in
believe
the
her
current
builder
longest
told her it
iteration.
could not come down, could not come out.
right, because of the structural. Yeah,
Right.
she wouldn't have been able to remove it.
I think, well, the thing about it is by doing this, and I'm not reading into her mind, but visually, she's trying to make the building look
Cohesive,
perfect.
yeah.
And these buildings, I mean, all of them, if you look at the firehouse, you're going to see the hardware of where things used to be, all of them. You cannot, well, obviously you can make it look perfect, but that's kind of counterproductive here.
But
We don't want a perfect building.
We
We
wanna
want to
retain
show
the
the
history.
character of these
Yeah,
buildings.
the
But I
history
believe,
of-
Hank, even if they wanted to, that they can't remove that I-beam, because it is also structural to the building.
Yeah,
That's why
I'm sure they
the
modified
builder
the
wanted
building
to
to
and
make it
couldn't.
structural. Yeah.
Right.
Well, or
Not an architect.
let's take that back. They could have removed it, but it would have been a huge expense to remove that to make those walls structural again without the beam being in it. So I think it would have been not an option for a feasible option to remove that beam. But to answer your question, Hank, if it would have been strictly a COA to cover that beam, I would have said no, only because there's other buildings that have that exposed beam, and that exposed beam has become, a character reference in not just her building, but other buildings that share that same character reference. So it adds to the character of the neighborhood.
And then the part two is what materials were used to do it.
Right. So we can talk about some more, but I mean, I don't see a remedy other than removal, in my personal opinion, for this, because I think that covering that kind of takes away a distinctive feature that other buildings share. So personally,
But remember, we're looking at this as if it isn't up, as if it's a new thing, because had
Right,
the
so-
applicant not done it and come from permission,
right,
she
so I would
wouldn't
have said
done
no.
that.
I would have
Right.
said no. I would have said no, leave it as it is. So, by remedy is to make it as it is in the above picture. But that, again, we're being asked for solutions, and in my personal opinion, in this case, solution is removal. I hope that the city council isn't asking for positive, or not, it's just whatever the solution, whether to keep it or not keep it, or modify it, or whatever. But so that's my opinion. But everybody has their own.
Well, I just feel uncomfortable giving a personal opinion about this. I could live with it, but I could not live with the extension where she extended it past where the beam was to make it look aesthetically good on the building.
Tammy,
Sort of a
That's your
median,
opinion.
like meeting
That's
her in
my
the middle
opinion.
would be to remove the extension, but leave the covering. That
I think
way,
that's what-
sort of like meeting her halfway.
I think that's
Yeah.
what
That's what I'm saying.
That's what
I agree with that.
Cheryl's saying. Hank, what do you think?
Well, I agree with that, but I personally, I don't see the problem with extending it, but I'll go with the majority on this particular.
Anna, what do you
I have a question.
Sure.
So what are you all saying? Because I want to be real clear.
Well, I'm
You're
saying
saying
removal.
Removal of the little bump
That's
out?
my opinion,
but
is
leave-
complete removal.
But leave the covering of the
My
I-beam?
my personal opinion is leaving.
Even if the I-beam covering is ephes?
What I'm suggesting is making it look like it did in the beginning with the beam being exposed.
Oh, okay.
Tammy believes that a compromise of leaving the covering the way it is, but removing the extension.
Even if the covering, Tammy?
Well, we haven't talked about the material
Okay.
yet.
All right.
But the design of it is what is acceptable to Tammy and to Cheryl and to Hank.
Yeah,
So
I'm fine with that.
Okay, so that's 4-1. So moving forward, then that would be obviously removing the extension part. We're going to have a caveat in all of these as far as synthetic material in that scenario where I don't, in my personal opinion, as we move through these, maybe on a case-by-case basis, but we'll have to discuss the material portion if a material was used in that. But let's move on at least to get through the figures so we're not
Chairman,
going too far down through.
may I just direct the board to schedule page S28, building features? What it states is the distinguishing original characteristics of an existing contributing building structure or site shall not be destroyed. If replacement is necessary, the new building feature shall match the feature being replaced in composition, color, texture, proportion, style, profile, and other visual qualities. Repair or replacement of missing architectural features shall be based on accurate duplications of features substantiated by historic, physical, or pictorial evidence, rather than on conjectural designs or the availability of different architectural elements as seen on other buildings or structures in the area. You got that on page 28.
Thank you. 2.3, trim concealed with stucco.
So, were these transom windows?
At one point. All right, so what do we have as far as pictorial evidence of those? We have nothing to see what those transom windows look like before.
Yes, you do.
We do?
Yeah.
Thought I saw them.
Because they're not even there, and they're not even there
Right here they are.
in 1910.
What?
Are they?
Oh, yeah, they're here. They're in the 1926 picture.
They're not there in the 1910 picture.
They're right over the canopy.
Yep,
This part here.
that part right there.
That's not a window.
Yes,
Yeah, it is. It's cracked open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These are hopper-style transom windows.
That's the front of the building. I want to look at the side of the south elevation.
We don't have a 1926 photo of the south elevation.
Roll on it.
Do we have do we have an 85 without the
Canopy.
or something without the what south elevations do we have? Because in 1910, 1910 there are no
Right.
transom windows in there.
But
But
you
when were
see-
they added? I mean, they were added in 26.
We don't know.
It could be anywhere between
We don't know
10
what
and
the side was
26.
added.
Because in 10 they weren't there. This building went through a lot in 10 to 26.
Yeah.
I know, in 16 years, right? We're not.
That was before historic preservation.
Yeah. What do we have for 26? Do we have that
Got this.
do we have that do we have that other one that looked like the one where we actually saw the banding? There was it was this with a little bit of the south elevation, but it was really grungy.
The most recent. Yep, that one.
Yeah.
Those
All
are
right.
transom.
Yeah, so
They
let's
continue from the front
Yeah.
to the side.
so it's continuous transom windows, right?
Are they painted there?
And what year was this taken?
They usually put plywood.
I would have to check with the museum, but it was the saloon,
looks
I
like
think, in the 80s.
Yeah,
And you can look at the
vehicles.
vehicles, too. This is
Yeah, it looks
either
like it.
80s or 90s.
looks like a 92 or 93, a little Ford, something. Can we blow that up a little bit, please? I want to look at and kind of we move to the,
What year is this?
we're trying to figure that out. Probably late 80s, early 90s.
Where's the iron band?
The beams there,
The beam where?
Right above
the very top
the
there.
window.
That's sticking out. That's not the original
No,
iron
look at
beam.
it. It's right over. It's between the two. See it?
No.
Was this done
Looks like-
before
looks
the
like,
awnings?
concrete.
No, the awnings were done before this.
The what?
We can't tell. We don't know.
I don't see
Awnings
any. I
were
don't see
before
any
this.
I-beam.
The awnings were before this because the awnings were 85 prior. So, what is?
You see? I don't see the beam there. I see a ledge.
That's it.
It didn't stick out that far in the other pictures.
Well, probably.
Look at the shadow. That's a ledge sticking out. You can almost walk on it.
Can I?
Yeah. Need a laser pointer.
No, I'm just trying to see this right here. Trying to see that shadow to see how far. Because to tell you the honest truth, it looks like a ledge, but not the beam.
Yeah.
You know, it looks like a ledge and not a beam. I mean, the beam's obviously still there.
Somewhere.
Somebody
They covered it.
at this point is covering it.
They did. You can see it.
I mean, but I bet they didn't use EFS.
Oh, I guess not. They didn't have it then.
Oh, people, let's,
This building has been changed so many times.
No, I know.
I mean,
You know-
what is what?
But
What is
see,
right?
again, the like Christine said, pictorial references to things
Are
sometimes offer more proof. So if there's a pictorial reference that matches her current design, even if it's different from 1910, there is some justification to that design. Now, again, here it doesn't extend, so obviously I'm not even going to,
Don't go back
talk
there.
about the extension, but
no.
so.
Christine, could you pull up the figure 2.3 again? Okay, and enlarge it. Enlarge it some more. Okay, you see the columns on either side of the transoms that are going up? That little detail?
Yeah.
Okay, now pull up the one that we're referencing to. No, not the one that we just did, that one. Are there any details there?
Yeah, there is.
No, but
Yeah,
it looks-
there's a shadow in between there. You can see that it juts a little bit. It
Like a
just
shadow.
juts slightly.
Pull it up more.
We go as far as you can. Is that extended as far as you can? Zoomed out. My eyesight's horrible. Anybody got a pair of glasses I could borrow?
Don't want
binoculars.
these.
When I
Alright.
go to hide, the
That's
computer
good.
does
Oh, it
something
does that?
weird,
Okay, perfect. That's
so,
fine.
Got a-
yeah, I might have
That's
to
good.
close it. It's
better.
all over the place now.
That's fine. Just
So there is a detail there.
yeah. And then look, did you see that detail in
But there is not a detail on the last
the
window.
grunge band video or the
On the
grunge
last
picture?
window, she's got a band going down. Oh, no, I'm sorry, forget that, I take that back, it's just painted. Okay.
Okay, so we're discussing 3, which is the transoms, right? That center trim on the transoms, right?
So what was done to these transoms? They ended up being plywood painted, and
Stucco.
then they're stuccoed over now.
Right.
you know if there was glass in there? We didn't know that. So they've been plywood and painted for
Since 85 at least.
at least, maybe more, maybe longer.
Well, yeah, we don't know. prior
But
to
what does the
85.
S code say, Christine, about when you alter something that is not, like if she's altered the plywood now,
She's supposed to replace the original material.
Either
supposed to
repair
re-
or, yeah.
Replace the original, she's supposed to put windows back in there.
right?
But what year were the windows taken out? That's the
Well, it
question.
doesn't matter that. She could
Well, it
have
does
kept the,
matter.
no, because she could have kept the plywood up. She altered the plywood.
Right, so if you do alter the plywood, if she wanted to alter the plywood, she'd have to put windows in
Yeah,
there.
she couldn't put
Right.
plywood back. Yeah.
No, you can't.
Right,
Well, once she took it out, she couldn't replace it.
right, exactly.
But she could have left it alone.
Yes, she could have
Correct.
left it alone
Yes.
and painted it.
Yes.
And it
That would
been-
look much better than stucco.
But now that it's been altered,
We're not the look good committee.
I'm not saying we are.
I think I look good. I don't know.
I'm just pointing out points.
But it is in Schedule S that any time you disrupt, even if something is wrong on a building, like plywood, once you take that material and change it, you have to go back.
But how far
It's
back?
just the S codes.
I'll
far
direct
back?
you to where this is in schedule. It's page S29. There's two things in the bullet points there that may be helpful for you. What it says here is an owner may retain the material or remove it. If the material is removed, however, it shall be replaced with historically appropriate materials.
We do it all the time with siding with people that come in front of us.
What do you,
And
but
two-
what's
two-
meant by historically correct material? Original, like glass, would be the only option? Or could she have put stucco there? That's,
That's a question for the board.
She
That-
could have,
The other bullet point I will point out to you is
she could have removed them all and bricked the whole building, like they had in 1910.
yeah.
The other bullet point I'll point out to you is on page
too
S29,
expensive,
and what it says is, application of non-historic exterior finishes which result in either the removal or covering of historical materials and details shall be prohibited.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Application of non-historic exterior finishes which result in either the removal or covering of historical materials and details shall be prohibited. Page S29.
So she could have used historical materials, or she should have used historical materials.
left it alone.
But if you took the plywood off, she'd have to use historical materials.
Yeah.
My
Right.
question is, does that mean only glass, or could she have put brick or
She could have put
stucco or the original block?
So what you're asking the question is, if she would have removed that plywood, could she have stuccoed the whole building flush?
No,
Probably not, because
No,
on
no,
that
no.
aspect, no, but
she'd have to, well, I'm saying, ESCO's call for replacing the plywood with historical
If it's been
materials.
removed, yeah.
If it's been, yeah, let's assume it was removed.
okay.
Could she have used stucco? Because that's an historical material.
Well, yeah, but you have to take that in the context with what you're replacing. If you're replacing over a window that is a historic window, then no, she wouldn't have stuccoed it, because the window should be there.
We've had other applicants come to us before that they were going to replace the plywood in their transom area, and we told them, no, they had to repair it. If they took the board out, they would have to replace it with glass.
Glass or smoke glass, color glass.
Or new plywood.
Historic style.
no
No
plywood.
You can't even re-put the
Stop
plywood.
instigating, Hank.
No
Stop
plywood.
instigating.
But, okay.
All right.
There was an exception.
We're getting a little off topic. We're actually, we'll get back to that, but 2.3, that little detail in between, it is my personal opinion, again, doing construction, that can possibly be a piece of wood covered over with stucco to create that detail that's in the center of the two windows above that. It looks as though they just, maybe there was a piece of wood on there, they took it off and flushed it over, but I think that it would be that's an architectural detail in my personal opinion. So I think that they could put that right here, a piece of wood right there, and stucco over top of that wood to give that look. I'm talking about right here, guys.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I'm talking about right there. All three of these right here.
I'm assuming that
Or
that
four.
was the frame for the original glass that was in there.
That makes sense.
Right.
How long's the glass been out?
Probably since these awnings were put on.
How long, well, could have been
At
taken
least-
out before that. Could have, we don't know.
But again, I think that to keep that continuous line
Yeah.
from the bottom of the window to the top of that beam is what I would suggest doing. Whether it takes a small trim piece of wood and stucco, just to continue that line instead of it being flush, just continue that line. If the transom windows are not going to be replaced, if they're going to be
What are you,
Done,
what do
then-
you, what trim, what are you saying?
see, can you point? Who's got the laser pointer?
This right here. See where it comes up right here.
That thing.
That. But that's going to extend
Right there. Yeah.
past
Okay.
the window detail.
Well, there's at the very top of that there is an edge, and it's probably at least a
But
quarter
this is
inch.
filled in now.
So a quarter-inch piece of.
I mean, it'll be sticking out further than the
Yeah.
window detail.
No.
Why don't you just paint it?
Oh, you have one? Oh, thank you.
Red button there.
Push the red button.
There
So
you go.
yeah, we're talking about that right there.
Yeah, okay.
It continues that line. You know what I'm saying? It breaks it up.
All
Hey.
right.
Now that should have been a green one, and then we would actually really had some fun. Well, dark side in the line. Anyway, I think something should be done to continue that line through. That's my opinion.
So you're looking for a little trim detail.
Trim detail, yeah. I mean it, and it sounds silly, but it obviously it continues that
Yeah.
separation between the
Two panels.
the two and creates that as that top
Otherwise,
piece.
it just looks like a big slab
Big-
up
yeah.
there.
Mhm.
Okay.
You know what?
No, yeah.
You know what my opinion is?
What?
That is such a, I mean, to me, okay, so go back and do that, which that's not right either. So I would have said, if she would have come in front of me, come on, girl, put the windows in. Because to me, to modify this to look like that, I don't, that doesn't like make sense.
Yeah, but here's the problem. But here's the problem. She
Would have been
these
cheaper to put the windows
right,
in.
but these items here
Yes, it would have.
were not removed. If she
Don't
would have
know
removed
that.
if she would have removed them, then she would have had to put something historic back in. But she
Correct.
did not remove these.
I don't know.
All of that was just stuccoed over to create a flat surface.
But we're supposed to look at it as if she hasn't done anything. Isn't that what we're supposed to be doing
So
today?
you
Well,
would
no,
have
but
told her. to
Again,
put windows.
unconventional
Would've said,
because
no, thank you, and we'd still have
And then I would have
plywood.
said, keep the plywood.
But because the commission is asking us for remedies of what has already been done,
Okay,
we
okay.
do have to take into consideration
you're
what's
right.
been done,
You're
unfortunately. Now, again, rewind completely,
Right.
sure, if she would have come before us and said, hey, I want to stucco over this whole thing, I'd have said,
Yeah.
wait a minute, let's talk
look-
about that.
Look into the windows,
But
right?
we're
Right, you're right.
Right. We're there now, and I think that the item in front of us, 2.3, is that the lack of that architectural feature which separates those two spots. I would suggest trying to recreate that.
Well, no. See, I differ in that. So I'm going
Absolutely.
to differ with
Okay,
them
perfect.
on this
Yeah.
one because I think,
It's not
I
going
don't
to
know.
line up.
I don't think it
not?
makes that big of a
No,
difference.
because
deal.
when
Like-
she's stuccoed over the wood
Well,
and
yeah,
that
and that
detail,
would make that
now
much appealing.
sticks out further than the piece
Hang
going
on,
Never gonna
hang
be
on.
right.
Mary's going to have issues if there's more
Sorry,
than one
Mary.
person talking.
I have no idea what you all want.
Well, we haven't created a consensus yet. We haven't. We're just still discussing.
See what I'm talking about?
It doesn't really feel authentic to put it back either, because it feels like we don't even know what's authentic, so it feels like it got taken away. Putting it back seems faux, kind of, it doesn't feel right. Didn't feel right to remove. I wouldn't have wanted it removed, but
In the
now that
first
it's
place.
on, it's like,
See, it would have been good to have had a staff recommendation like we always do, which to me, they're the
We're not
historic
there.
but we're not doing that, right?
Right.
And that's what makes this hard, too.
Right.
Because they might come back and say, no, there should be a line there, I don't know.
Who's going to say that?
The staff would.
Well-
They make
Oh, yeah, but
recommendations all the time.
Yeah, but that's neither here nor there now.
Where it sticks out.
I mean, can we ask for one
Go
on
back.
on the record? Can we ask
Go
for
back
one?
down.
I would
to
love
the
to,
present.
yeah.
Are we allowed to do that?
Are we allowed to ask?
Hold on. Right here,
You see,
does this stick out further than this, or is that a,
Looks like it's
looks like this
It
sticks out
appears to be
further than the
recessed.
trim, right?
Indented.
So that all the windows are recessed below this, right?
including.
Yeah, so that, then you're saying that centerpiece
It's
would
gonna-
stick out further than
will
this
stick
would,
further
and it would
than
stick
that.
even further out then, okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
Can I jump in maybe and help some of the
Please.
Please.
discussion? If you were to ask Christine what her recommendation would be, my guess is she's going to tell you comply with Schedule S.
Which means take it
Which
out
means
for window.
that's not relevant to your discussion
Right.
today.
Oh.
It's like you
Right.
said, that you are with the building the way it is now. You have found that it doesn't comply with Schedule S.
Right.
The city commission has said, let's assume that they overturn your decision. What remedy? Dealing with what is there now. That's what the discussion has to focus on. Have I characterized what you would say correctly, Christine?
Right. Of course, when I do the staff reports, I reference back to Schedule S before I make my statement. So if this had not already happened and it was proposed to be covered, and that was the original framing for the circa 1926 transom windows, the staff recommendation would have been to keep that as is.
Right.
Because it
Okay.
has been that way likely on the building for 89 years at that point before it was altered. So that's a significant part of the building's history, so why cover it? That would have been my recommendation. Would be not to cover it, for the record.
But we're not.
Okay, so at the end of the day, for 2.3, we're either going to say, remove all the stucco and put it back to plywood in between the, well,
You can.
I understand that.
That's our
Well,
I'm sorry.
I mean, that,
Finish.
again, it's, we're unconventional, it's already been done, so what is the, but if we tell her to put it back with plywood, then that's still going to violate Schedule S, so that the remedy is,
Well,
Right.
if we put it back the way it originally was, this is, like you said, this is unusual circumstances.
Yeah, I agree.
So if we say she can't have stucco there, she's got to put the plywood back. Then it's in compliance again, because it was in compliance before she put the stucco on.
No. And
Yeah.
then the next,
because it was an existing and she hadn't removed it.
right, but she did, and that's what
Right.
the rule says. That means a number of property owners on First Street, instead of fixing their transoms, can just
Well, they have to
say, well, I
come,
want to.
they have to come before
But then you're
HPB.
setting precedents.
So did she have to do that, and she did.
She did.
So,
Right, but if you go ahead
Well,
and
she
tell
never
one
came
that you
before
can
us
put it
because
back.
she told she didn't have to.
she was told she didn't have to because we don't want to get into that
Yeah,
discussion.
we don't
but
need to discuss.
This wasn't included in her C of A. Or she would have had to come in.
Well, you just need to be prepared. If you're going to say you can put plywood back up there, you need to be prepared to defend not letting another property owner come in here and ask for the same
Mr.
thing.
Chairman, can I help there?
Please.
And I want to get as much said as I think will be helpful from me. I have to leave at 6 because another meeting after. But for the record, anything you recommend in terms of a remedy in the context of this appeal is not precedential to anything. Schedule S still is Schedule S, so an applicant comes before you for certificate of appropriateness, your staff's going to do an analysis of Schedule S, you're going to get a recommendation, and there's no, this process and this appeal with the question that's been asked of you by the city commission is totally non-precedential.
Okay.
So just look at it as what would be the remedy, if anything. And I'm not saying you have to say anything, but if you do say there's something else that can be done, that will not be precedential.
Okay.
Okay. So in the context of that, my suggestion would be find a way to at least maintain that separation in that architectural design, however it would need to be. but my personal opinion is, the two separate windows, which was an original feature, regardless of how they got there, I think that it should maintain the separate look to the two, whether it's a trim piece in the center, or if those jut out the center, then dig out the center and create a concave something. I mean, at least to give it that two-block separation so that it splits up the center and creates that look. But, that's just my personal opinion. So,
I agree.
I agree with that.
so do you understand?
Because that doesn't sound like,
Seems to be a consensus of finding a way in this item to create a separation through any type of architectural feature, whether it's adding or removing a small section to the center of it, to create that separation between those two, to somehow maintain the idea of them being transoms and then separate and not a one unit. We have a consensus, so we'll move on.
Yes.
Yes, I agree.
Okay. All right, 2.4, trim concealed with stucco. This one is,
What's trim?
111.
What's trim?
look above, there's all wood trim there below the windows. All of that wood trim, the architectural feature.
She just
That-
built
Flattened,
it
cut over.
out.
Yeah, she built it out.
So that architectural detail is
Where?
on top of the T111?
No, the T111, I believe, was below that architectural feature.
I don't know.
If we can,
It doesn't look like it.
can we blow that?
Yeah, I get it.
That I'm losing my, yeah. I think that edge right there, you see the T111 stops about right there.
I think it
But you
goes-
see there's
Oh,
a
yeah,
ledge,
I see.
I
and
can't
there's
see
two
it.
boards
Yeah.
right there.
I see it.
Those two boards, Hank, look, see those
Well,
two boards right there?
Yeah, but
Because that was a
Those aren't there anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
And those look to be inset. They look to be inset of the T111. So when she stuccoed, she went straight up over the T111, covering this, then even with that
And then created a
bottom,
bump out.
and created a little bump out on that ledge right there. Yeah. So this one's a little bit more difficult, obviously, because it's stuccoed over top the
I think this goes in hand with the T111.
T111. Yeah, I think that we're going to
Number
have
4 and 5.
to 6. No,
4 and
4 and 5.
5.
Yeah, 4 and 5. We're going to have to talk about those together. So the T111 is still underneath it.
What's left of it?
Well, yeah, I mean, theoretically.
Well, we don't know.
Okay.
I would presume that's easy to
Right.
do it.
Again, had this applicant come, if this was fresh and new, we would have said to open it up in the windows again.
Or leave it
That would have been
way
the
it is.
cheapest.
Or- yeah, or
That
leave
would have
it.
been the cheapest.
Or leave it.
Cheapest would be to leave the T111.
But it would just
No,
leave it alone.
cheapest would have been the,
Why not?
versus stucco, it would have been cheaper to have exposed the windows.
It would have been cheaper just to leave the T111.
Right.
And not stucco anything.
But she did.
Right.
Got her.
Well, we have the same situation here that we had with the transoms.
Well, again, removing it, everything is, what was there was T111, and we can't put T111 back in, or
We don't like it.
yeah. And we don't know the condition of the T111 that's under that stucco, so even if we strip the stucco off, the T111 may not be in condition enough to repair. So that would put us in our
With regard
place.
to the health of the building.
Yeah.
Oh.
So that's a tough one. This is not an easier one.
Well, I don't know. I think this particular one, seeing how we're not setting any precedents, I would just say leave it.
But that-
In this particular case, this is where communication broke down, I think.
Yeah, but regardless of how we got here, Hank, I mean, again, we're not calling into question
Oh.
how we got
But
here.
I
I know.
think this
but
changes
We have
the
to make a
whole,
recommendation.
but I think this changes the whole character of the building, and it makes it more modern now.
Again, my personal opinion is, my opinion is the same as it was before. I think, can we go up, Christine? Replacing that architectural feature, replacing that style somehow to make the building look. Adding it back in, adding this back into the layout.
Well,
At least, if we, sometimes as an artist, you look back and you have to squint at things because you want to see it from just a general perspective. And, we're talking about the material, and
I could go with that, to add that detail.
What about as a compromise, leaving the stucco over the T111 area, but then adding the architectural detail back in?
Yeah.
Again, that's a halfway point.
I think Ian's saying that. Yeah, it gives it's not such a flat surface. You get a little
you don't have a
Interesting.
lot of space there for the detail now that she's built out.
no, I understand, but
I mean, we're
that
talking-
the stucco would have to be removed. This is inset anyway.
Right.
Some of the stucco.
Some of this would have, the stucco over top this would have to come out, and then that would have to be retained somehow. That style would have to be retained. This from here down, and
Talking
in
about-
this circumstance I'm discussing.
Yeah.
This from here down would be stucco.
Right.
This in between the thing would be that wood architectural feature with those stacked.
So you're saying
Features.
remove a strip of stucco.
Whatever this
and
amount,
replace
whatever
it.
this amount is, and retaining that design feature
Yeah.
using approved materials.
So you strip out just a section of stucco, so that resets.
Right. I mean, because this is a recognizable architectural feature that has been removed, and I think that if we can retain that style of the ledging below the windows.
We're now redesigning the building.
No, I'm putting.
It's
are you kidding?
still, we're redesigning the building.
How are we designing the building? If we remove the stucco, that wood should still be there, unless that
Right.
wood was removed.
You don't know.
Well, we've said this 100 times. This is a non-conventional, request.
Okay.
And we're not, and we're not, we don't have the applicant in front of us to approve or deny. We're
Okay.
asked to provide what are some solutions after the fact.
Okay, my opinion is that it needs to come down,
What?
the stucco.
All right,
So you're suggesting remove the stucco completely?
Yes.
and do what?
Well, if the T111 cannot be saved, well, then she's going to have to put glass.
Well, let me ask staff. And if the applicant, and I'm just for background, if the applicant had come before us and had removed T111 in one of the bays, what would you have told them? They would have to, they couldn't replace it with T111, they would have had to have,
We did talk about this extensively over the course of 6 months as the potential options that could be presented to the board.
okay?
And one of the options that I discussed with the applicant is the option to remove the T111 and expose the circa 1926 storefront openings. The applicant wasn't interested in that as an option because of the dance studios. She didn't want people to be able to see inside the dance studios. So that was one option, was remove the T111, expose all the storefront openings, bring them back to glass. Option number 2 that I presented as another potential scenario was to offer to the board opening up the storefront windows on the front facade. So
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we know. Yeah.
Yeah.
opening
Those
these two, but requesting to the board to keep covering over here and potentially stucco over it based on that this is a secondary facade and it's directly across the street from another building that pretty much has a blank wall. Now, obviously, these are things that I cannot approve in-house, but these were potential scenarios that I advised the applicant she could present to the board for consideration. So the scenario 2 was to retain this and stucco over it, but still open up the storefront on the front facade. She wasn't interested in doing that. So, I mean, I could keep going through the list. We had lots of options. One thing that I will note, just like with this header here, while it is structural, it is also architectural. I mean, in every building, what you're seeing on the outside is a result of not just some, applied trim work. It's actually part of the building. It's part of the structure. So these areas that you all are discussing above the window, these were the frames for the transom windows. That's why that trim is there. Mm-hmm. It wasn't applied trim just to have a trim piece. It was a frame.
Right.
Right here below mezzanine windows, that is also not just an architectural trim. That is the top part of the storefront window in that section, in each one of these. So that was the wood trim that would have been in the storefront window would have been in the area of the T111 that you see there. So it's not just taking a wood piece and tacking it on there. This is actually a structural and architectural detail of the original building. I don't know if it's still intact. I don't know what's happened with the construction. I wasn't there to witness it, so it's really hard to say what should happen at this point. I had advised the applicant over the course of 6 months when we discussed these options that if she presented this option or scenario to the board of the covering on the south elevation, that contingent upon my research at the museum and the files, that I may potentially support a recommendation for covering this side, but absolutely would not support a recommendation for covering the west facade, because the west facade is a primary facade. That was never asked for as an option to go before HPB, and therefore I never did do my research at the museum.
I want to add one little thing, and I know that, we're in a different place right now, but I do have to add that I did listen to the CRA recordings, Hank.
Yeah.
And at hour number 1, 9 minutes and 10 seconds, she was asked if she was covering the T111, and she said no. I just thought I'd bring that out there, because this whole mess wouldn't have happened if rules were followed.
I appreciate that.
And I know that doesn't matter, because whatever
appreciate that, but
CRA has nothing to do with our S codes, but
I do want to just remind everyone, we regardless of how we got here, we are here.
I know.
And unfortunately, we are in a situation where we're trying to find or uncover what the recommendations would be to City Council.
Well, my recommendation, based on what Christine said and what Lonnie's been saying, is to retain the stucco, put back the trim for
like the upper.
Some kind of trim.
This right here.
Yeah. And call it a day for this 4 and 5.
Let me clarify that was not my recommendation, so I
Right,
feel
yours
I've
was.
been misquoted. What I stated was that I had discussed with the applicant the potential for a recommendation of approval on the south elevation only,
Right.
Right.
with the storefront windows coming back on the west elevation.
Well, we're discussing the south side only right now.
Not the whole thing.
You're discussing the whole thing. You're
Well,
discussing anywhere in the
not
building.
according
that
to-
you-
Well, as far as figure 2.4 and 5, it's really it's not.
South side.
Maybe you didn't define in your figures the front or specifically on any. So if you want to say that figures 2.4 and 2.5 don't just include the south elevation, they include the west elevation as well. Front.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah, because the same thing was done to the front as was done to the
Yeah,
south
I'm just
side.
saying, I thought we were taking this in sections.
Right, well, there is no specific, what she's saying, what staff is saying, there's no specific
Right.
figure for the front. The front is intended to be included with 2.4 and 2.5.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have any pearls of wisdom to offer, but I do have to leave soon. If there's any questions that I might address before I leave,
We're not there yet.
I wish I could talk more, but I think I've...
Cancel your other meeting.
Excuse me?
Cancel your other meeting.
How long is the meeting? Can you make it back? Because we're going to still be here for a little while.
City council meeting starts at 6:30. It shouldn't last but like a 10 minutes. But I'll drive back by.
Can I petition the mayor to postpone that meeting a little while? Keep our...
Not his,
No, I know, I'm kidding.
You know that.
Right. Well, thank you, Mr. Groot. We appreciate it.
All right. I could modify my opinion on this to have her open up the west side,
Meaning the front.
yes, of the building. Take the stucco down and put glass windows in there. And you want to do a detail on the south side.
Well, that south detail would have to be transferred to the front.
Yeah, oh,
This-
yes,
this would be-
definitely.
Would have to be consistent around the whole building,
Yes.
as far as my opinion.
Would you be replicating the detail or cutting the stucco back to that point?
Well,
to
I
reveal
would
the original?
prefer cutting the stucco back to expose the original detail, and if it's not in disrepair and it's able to be saved, then I would suggest to keep it original as possible. But if that is wood, which I believe it's wood, if that somehow the wood is in disrepair, if it can be repaired with, appropriate material, then prepare it with appropriate material. But so that's what I would prefer, is it to have at least this portion here, maintain that architectural style throughout the west and the south elevation. And
So-
obviously,
I just want to understand your intent. Your intent is not to replicate a trim detail over the stucco. So it
No.
wouldn't be original, then stucco, now trim
no,
applied
just
detail.
cut that stucco out. Cut the stucco out, which was, that the stucco was put over top of that to make it flush all the way up. So cut the stucco out and expose that wood detail to maintain that wood trim detail. Disagree?
Yeah, I agree with that.
But then you'd be leaving the stucco on the south elevation, and then the west elevation would have glass.
Yes.
Right.
I agree with that, too.
I agree with everything but the west elevation glass.
So you believe, Hank, you're okay with the stucco on the west elevation?
Again, under the circumstances, it's done, and we can drag up how it was done. Again, that's,
Well, but we're trying to rectify what was done.
I know.
Just because, if we're going to say, well, it was done, well, then why are we sitting here?
Right.
You know,
Well,
piecemealing all
Well,
this.
I agree on some things, I disagree
Okay,
here.
okay.
And again, we're with our recommendations, we're not disputing our denial.
Opinions,
Right.
yeah.
Right. We're not
We're
disputing
not
our original
setting any,
denial. We're trying to find a reasonable solution to what was done and the violations that are in front of us.
Chairman, once you reach a consensus on this one
I will,
item, would we be able to have just a
clarify.
brief break?
Absolutely, yeah. But I'll clarify it first before we reach a consensus. Take a quick break. Anna, what is your opinion on the west elevation? On all of it.
Same.
So on the detail?
Are you trying to answer for me?
Yeah.
No.
So on the
Agree with
detail,
that.
what is your opinion on the detail? Your consensus on the detail?
Yes, the detail, I'd like to see that.
Okay.
Try to uncover it and restore
Okay.
what was there, absolutely.
Right.
And I think I agree with Cheryl with the front. I would love to see that opened up. That is not where the little girls dance, those are offices.
Right.
So it would be wonderful to have that, I think, at least partially try to restore this building,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's my opinion.
All right, well, then I would say the consensus is to retain the stucco on these 4 panels, aside from this, removing the stucco to expose that wood detail, retaining that wood detail through the south and west elevations, but in the front 2, road-facing panels, removing the stucco T111 and putting in windows.
Chairman, it is not just 2 on the front. There's actually 4 because you have the recessed area here.
Oh, the recessed areas? Okay.
That was T111 as well.
Okay, then 4. That's the consensus on that. Let's take a quick break. We'll do 5 minutes. If we need to do longer, please let me know, but let's try to keep it to 5 because we still have some more images to go through. We're going to call the meeting back to order. Anybody out in the... we're going to move forward here. So we're going to move on to 2.6. And 2.6 is the... looks like a little window with the air conditioning unit in it. Same with the same scenario, Christine. If we can see, what I'd like to do is each time we look at a new figure, if we can have ready the 19 or the 10, which I see here, which is not there obviously, but
It was
the
an 85.
26 and then the 85 and then maybe the mucky one, if we can get a side view as much as we can, just to get a reference as to what was there previously. I guess I have to ask what this was prior. It was a hallway window? Was it a window inside a room? Because the only question I have, and maybe we alluded to it, was for ingress and egress, is this window, does this window affect ingress or egress? Because I don't know where it's at. When was this built? When was this?
Ian,
Yeah, sorry.
on the floor plan,
Yeah.
in the packet, it's in the room.
It's inside a room.
With the other window that's next to
Okay,
it.
so it's an additional. So what you know what year this is? Would
This one's also from the 90s.
90s? Okay.
It's hideous.
Yeah.
What
What's that?
what's in there, an air conditioning unit?
Fell off.
That's what it looks like.
Well, is it operational?
Is it still
Why
in
did they
there?
keep the? Yeah, it's still there. Wonder why they kept it.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Why they,
I mean, if it's not
well,
operational.
I think what happened, if I'm remembering correctly, there was plywood closing
Yeah.
off the rest of the window,
Right.
and
She said metal.
there was metal closing off the remaining of the window. So
Is that a vent or an AC unit?
She said AC unit, I thought, didn't she?
Looks like a vent.
do we know what that is?
Christine?
I'm sorry. We have had some members of the public who've wanted to speak, but I guess some people have left without having an opportunity to speak since we've already gone on for 2 hours. So that's what we were just discussing. I was pretty distracted just now.
Well,
Should we break?
Yeah, I
for
thought that
4
we.
minutes?
I guess we can.
Yeah.
I mean, we could break for what we've talked about so far, and if people would like to speak, and then we'll move on. And I just think that if we would have gone each item and then engaged the public in each item, it would have been even a longer process. So I wanted to get through some of them. Now that we're through some of them, let's go ahead and open it up to public if you'd like to speak, and then we can speak on what so far, and then and at the end, after the remaining ones, if we'll give them an opportunity to speak again if they want to stick around. So
only one people.
one people now, so
One.
just one. Oh. Absolutely, please.
Other people have been waiting longer, so I don't know. I'm sorry, I just kind of have to go, but Alec 1019 Magnolia Avenue, Sanford. One, I'm surprised there is actually public input on this particular, but as I keep hearing, it's different.
It is, yeah, and we do try to recognize, obviously, it's a unique circumstance, and
Understood.
we're trying,
I understood.
So-
Now, for brevity, I'll just say this. This building has obviously changed 1,000,001 times. The question I want to, you guys, and maybe Christine can answer it for you, and then I'll say the question, and then my concern, and then I'm going to go and I'll listen to my response on the air, as they say. My concern is what historic period of this building are we trying to retain? Because as we all know, we are in a situation where we are here.
Right.
This has all been done.
Right.
So my concern is when we're saying, well, what would we have done if, is sort of, it's both important and yet moot. Because what we should be thinking out is like, okay, here was where we are. Which is the architectural period that is most significant and or relevant for this building? Given the situation that it's in right now, what could we do to at least approximate or at least hearken to that period? So that would be my question that Christine can probably address in better, which is the period should we be looking at to try and get close to or duplicate,
right.
replicate. The other thing I was concerned about as we were trying to retain some elements that we think are original and architectural, such as the division trim wood between the transom and the main storefront windows, which again aren't original, but they're old. So you were discussing the finer points of trying to get that line back. And rather than replicate it, you were actually saying to remove materials to get to that element, to expose it, and then the compromise would be, well, then we'll leave the stucco of the T111 below that. And while your heart's in the right place, you have just redesigned the building because you are no longer proud of your adjoining surfaces. You are now recessed. There are weather concerns for that, of course. You never want to do anything to a historic building that could potentially make it more readily deteriorate. The other thing is it is no longer proud of the surfaces, as you well know. It is now recessed. So you have changed the design by trying to go back and find one of the elements. Those are my concerns. Really, which period you want to do? How can we do that from where we are? Which is best? Which is easiest? And most suitable, and then be careful not to strive to get something back while compromising with other things that essentially give you the same thing again, which is a different building. I don't have an answer, but those are my questions and concerns.
And I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I will address real quickly, though, the period that we're trying to, is what Christine had stated previously, is the state of the building that has existed the longest.
Which is
probably
post 26.
Post 26.
Right? Okay.
Really. So that's really kind of what we're looking at is post 26. That building has existed in its somewhat composite form for the majority of time. So that's really kind of the frame of reference. At least I'm
we are looking for the transom windows, the storefronts.
Yes.
That's what you're trying to do.
Yes.
So come up with something that's real and doable for the property owner, for the city, for everybody, that at least harkens to that period then, and just try not to add a layer. It's impossible at this point, but that building has challenged people. Anyway, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Mike, would you like to speak? No? Please, come on up.
Sarah Jacobson, downtown property owner. I don't know that I want to speak, but I'm having an awful hard time listening. I'm having a hard time surveying the situation and balancing all the odds and all the principles to it. And I was here a couple of other meetings and heard some of it, and that's all I really know about it. But I'd like to share with you my thoughts as a downtown property owner and as a downtown business owner. And understand with what I'm about to say that I'm very pro-historic preservation. It was I who initiated getting Sanford listed on the National Register of Historic Sites. I believe in it that strongly. However, when I listen to what's going on and I watch what's going on, I think it's wrong. I think what I'm hearing is a property owner, a person, bought a building. We have a hard time selling buildings downtown. A person bought a building, put a lot of money into fixing it up, did what the city told her to do, and I'm just talking from what I've heard in these meetings, did what the city told her to do, didn't listen to some suggestions that Christine told her to do, but I'm not sure in this small downtown if everybody involved in a decision-making in this process didn't see that building under construction and under remodeling. And I don't believe, and I don't know this to be true, but I don't believe that anybody ever said to what's her name, Cindy? To Cindy, if you go forward with this, you will be asked to undo it. It's not going to meet standards, and we're going to look at it that way. And I think from what I heard her say at a previous meeting is that she was advised that what she was doing by city staff, that what she was doing is proper. Now, here's where I'm going with all that and where my conflict, my inner conflict comes. As a person who's tried to promote downtown Sanford for years, do you know that we have, in the past several years, in the immediate downtown zone, from the waterfront to 3rd Street, now extended to 5th, from Sanford Avenue to Mellonville, at least 36 businesses go out of business every year? It takes a hard nut to crack to survive small town business, to survive things that haven't yet succeeded in all the various stages that we need them to, and we've progressed, no doubt. But if we take a property owner who has, in some senses of the word, and I'm pro-historic, but in some senses of the word, has improved this building, and a property owner who's added a business downtown that adds a little bit of class to our downtown, and a property owner who's made these gestures thinking she was doing what was legally correct because she was so advised by the city and because nobody else who watched it happening stopped her and made her realize what she was going to walk into. I just wonder if it's not more appropriate at this time for this board to look at how we can avoid making something like this happen again, and what we can do to keep it from putting another business out of business now. The things that you're going to be asking her to do are throwing bad money after good. And it's just, as a downtown business owner, that's tough. And I would like you to take a second look at it, at what's really best for downtown. I'm very pro-historic. But what really is best for downtown, what really is best for this future board, and what really would be the better decision for the city commission in the spirit of making this happen the way it should have happened in the first place, but nobody made it happen that way. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to address your items, if I might. First of all, thank you for speaking. We definitely appreciate input. As to how we got here, this board and city staff recognized the need for better communication. So we've initiated, actually, we call it a special session where the board spoke with all branches of the city, planning and zoning, city manager, deputy city manager, to discuss exactly those processes and procedures as they apply to HPB. So we've opened the line of communication and are doing what we can and working with city staff to prevent items like this from happening again. So we see the need, and we appreciate you're mentioning it, but we have begun that process, and we believe that we've already improved the process since the last time, and we strive to continue to improve that process on a regular basis. So,
And if I may interject, with all due respect, Sarah, there were some things you said that I want to make sure that you know all sides of something, and that is this young woman was stopped twice and told that she needed a permit. Originally, she said she was only repairing, which you don't need one. Then when we saw scaffolding go up and styrofoam go up, we stopped that job twice. She knew, she was quite aware what she was doing, and that what she was doing was wrong. She actually told the staff member, "I'll just go over your head." So this young woman is not as innocent as she portrays herself to be. She was well aware. She owns a historic building, and she did things without a permit. And she knew that this was going to happen, only she is to the belief, as she told someone, "I'd rather ask for forgiveness later." And that's the wrong attitude to have in downtown Sanford, I feel.
Well, we can't
I would
prove
agree
it.
with that.
What you just said is not provable.
Okay.
what I'd like to say as well on that aspect is two items. One, we don't prevent business owners, and we encourage business owners to take pride in their buildings and to repair things and make modifications. But we have a set of guidelines, and those guidelines are Schedule S. So as long as the building owner can work within the confines of Schedule S, they're free to make any modification they want. So we don't try to make it difficult for them to improve, and we encourage them, spending money and improving. So to your point of making it difficult for a business owner, I don't believe that we do that. I think we give them the avenue to do whatever they like with the building within the confines of Schedule S. But another point to make is we don't want to talk about the conjecture of how we got here, and again, we did address the communication issues with the city, but a point that I want to kind of make and maybe put it for the record is there's a popular misconception out there that if Lonnie was here, he would agree, and that if city staff, which city staff does a very good job of not doing that, but if somehow a staff member, and I'm not even addressing city staff present, but if any staff member of the city was to give a building owner verbal approval for something that went against Schedule S, the city attorney will tell you that's not approval. Approval has to come from here. So if we did not give that building owner approval, she did not have approval.
I understand
now,
that.
The issue, obviously, again, is the perception of maybe educating some additional staff members who may have had a conversation, and we're working on that. We really are. We're trying to resolve that. But anything that is a variance to Schedule S has to be approved by this board. So if she would have come before this board before she made modifications, or any building owner would have come before this board before making modifications, we would have been able to address those issues. But again, I appreciate you speaking, and I just really wanted to kind of let you know that we understand that we're trying to create a better process, and every day we strive to make it better and easier in the communication portion. So
I guess part of what I was remembering was when she said the building official told her she didn't need any other permit. And I don't pretend to have all the information.
Yeah,
it was just what I heard.
And I wasn't there either, so I really couldn't speak on whether or not that happened. But as far as modifications to the exterior, which we're here to discuss, would have been, she should have come before us for that. So again, no matter how we got there or how we are here, and this exercise is to try to find a solution or suggestions to get us to where she can at least. It would have been a different situation if any business owner or homeowner would come before us with changes prior to making those changes. What you hear us talking about right now doesn't reflect what our opinion would have been if the work hadn't been completed and she would have come before us requesting that information. We're here because we were asked by City Commission to weigh on these issues, create our suggestions, not edicts, but a suggestion to what the business owner could potentially do after the fact. we've already rendered our verdict as to whether or not, it was allowed, and that's done. So we're really not discussing that portion. So I hope you understand that this is a very unconventional, request, and we're doing something that this board has never done before. So we're trying to accommodate what was asked of us.
I do, and
Thank
I
you.
appreciate your explanation, and know that I totally respect the work that this board does. I respect the Schedule S. I respect Christine's smarts in this whole area, and I compliment you all, and I think you've made a big difference. So don't misunderstand me on that. I guess I was just looking for another way to make everything work in this case.
We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you for your input. Anybody else? Mike, please.
My name is Mike Yeba. I live at 2018 South Mellonville Avenue. I've been a resident of the city for the last 13, almost 14 years now. Also a past member of the HPB, like you all. I get the sense that, I'm getting the feeling that some financial aspects of this may be being considered. In other words, the cost for the repairs. I would also like to bring up regarding that please keep in mind that this applicant received public funds to do some of this work in by way of a facade grant and rehabilitation loan or grant. So it's, one, you're not supposed to consider financial hardship. Two, I don't believe it really exists to the extent that it may be thought of right now, because she has received funding to do these repairs, and that funding should have been used according to the S codes.
Mike, I thought the funding's not released until this issue is resolved.
I don't know. As far as
That's according to the CRA rules.
She's been paid.
It's not supposed to have been.
Yeah.
I believe that already fell through the cracks and she already got it.
All right. Well, that's...
I had a real problem with that when I heard it, but I can't say it for fact, but that's my understanding. And regardless of whether she gets it now or later, she's getting the grant. She was approved for the grant, but she was also supposed to do it according to the S codes.
Well, we could have that argument for another hour or two, so...
I'm sure we could, but just food for thought.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate that, Mike. Anyone else? Okay, let's move on then to, we were at 2.6 and discussing what to do with that. I still don't know what that is. Is it an AC unit? Is it a vent? Is it a, what is it? I mean, what is its function? Because I believe that it previously was a window that maybe had been metaled in to reduce the gap of that thing, whatever it is, and in the process of the design, it was just then stuccoed in.
Can we zero in on it?
You can see it in 2.7 better. It looks like the same.
Zoom in?
Well, in 2.6,
Oh, yeah.
6
Well,
is covering
yeah.
it.
So it does look like a vent, doesn't it?
Yep.
Looks like an air vent more than it does a...
Air conditioner.
It's denoted on the floor plan from your November 18th packet as a AC
unit. That's what I
unit.
thought she said.
I
yeah.
don't know if that's accurate. It is obviously some kind of mechanical unit. The window had already been removed at some point in the past before she actually owned this building.
Yeah.
And that mechanical unit had been filled in the space, but the dimension of that window opening had been maintained until this recent alteration.
Mm-hmm.
My opinion.
Sure. I'll
Just leave
listen
it.
to everyone.
Just leave it.
Agree.
Yeah, I guess so.
Consensus?
That's a consensus.
Okay.
Consensus is to leave it. 2.7, removal of recessed area from original door opening concealed with stucco.
What was that, Christina? Loading door?
That's what it looks like, right?
It's in our packet somewhere.
Boarded up?
Some kind of a,
What is it?
that's kind of what it looks like. It was probably
Yeah, when was it? Sticky.
for the theater. 'Cause look, it's in the rear.
Smooth
Yeah.
now. It's hard to tell because there's
It
a
was Opera House.
shadow of a tree.
I'm trying to look even right here. Where do
You can't
see
even,
it?
you can't see it.
Yeah, it's,
But I'll bet that's right.
There it is.
Yeah, can you blow that up?
I'll bet
What
that's
is-
what that was, yeah.
What is,
Like a loading.
what's there right now? Nothing?
Nothing.
In that picture?
Nothing.
Oh, okay. And there are two bathroom windows. You know what? I wonder if originally that was a door going into a bathroom, those two.
That big
Well,
door?
those two, but not the
Big,
big
though.
door.
It looks too big to be
Big
that.
door is probably loading the provisions. It was a
No,
restaurant.
that's a door. That wasn't a, looking at it back, it looks like it had even a transom on top of it, doesn't it?
well, that's
no.
another area.
Oh, so looking at something
That's
else?
2.8.
Oh, that's looking at that door.
There's
Okay.
multiple things going on back
Oh,
there.
wait, there it is. Yeah, there's a door in it.
You sure? I can't
Yeah.
see it.
Oh,
See?
yeah, there,
Well,
see it?
this is,
way.
well,
No,
that,
no,
hold on.
that's something else.
Yeah, we're looking at that right there.
We're trying to look at
That's
this,
another
we're trying to
door.
look at this right here, because that's the door that exists
Yeah,
already,
come
right?
this way. Where
That's a
this other
door.
door is.
That's
We're trying to look
something
at this
else.
right here, right?
No, keep coming this
No,
way.
that,
We're trying to
that is
look at this
something
right
else.
here.
That's it.
No, it didn't.
That's already, that exists.
That's
Yeah.
This
it?
already exists.
That's there.
Oh,
So we're
that's-
talking about this space right here.
Oh, okay.
Right now, in that
Behind
picture, it
that-
looks like a recess. That's it.
Yeah.
There's no door there.
Flash.
Wait, what's that white thing?
That's a door.
Door.
That's the door
another
that we,
door.
that previously
The
was
one
there.
on the left?
That's a
Yeah.
door.
This right here, that's
Yeah.
a
The
door.
door. It's no longer.
And
That's a
that's
door
not
that goes-
there? or
It's
is
there
it?
still.
Oh, it's still
Yeah,
there?
it's still there.
Right
see?
here.
Oh, it
Okay,
is.
okay.
Yeah, that door's still there.
Yeah.
Got it.
So she's stuck it in that recess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
My opinion is leave it.
Leave
me
it.
too. Yeah.
So the consensus on that is leave it as is. Now we're talking about 2.8, two shuttered windows, openings removed and concealed with stucco.
What's on the other side?
Those two
of it?
windows right there?
Those, I think those weren't those bathroom windows?
I believe at one point in time they were. I'm not sure really what's going on in that interior space right now.
The map is.
The fire department
no,
not-
they were storage. One was a storage room, one was a refrigeration room.
Right now?
Okay.
No, we're looking at the,
Original first floor plan.
What about now?
1985.
Oh.
Storage and refrigeration, I guess, for the restaurant.
Yeah, okay, so they were closed in.
In an answer to the board, not sure which board member just asked the question, but the fire marshal
Fire
did.
marshal, he doesn't have a problem with that?
He did render an opinion that there were no egress issues
Okay.
by any of the work that was done here.
Okay.
Okay. Well, that's good.
I'd say leave that too.
Yeah, leave it.
all right, with three, it's a consensus.
Was that the two windows, consensus on
Yeah.
the two windows?
So door heights altered and new doors installed. So my first question then obviously are the new doors installed
Metal?
proper? Character doors? I mean, are they metal or what type of doors are they?
That's a good question.
They appear to be metal doors.
And how do we feel about metal doors, for the record?
What did the S code say?
Well, let's look at
This is
specifics.
commercial, so I think there's
Yeah.
a little more
The
leeway.
S codes is different with commercial?
Yeah, there's some
Is it?
variation.
Wayne Dench, we
Some
approved
variation.
metal door
Yeah.
on Wayne Dench.
Oh, okay.
It was approved, I can tell you, at Wayne Dench, so
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
regardless of what Schedule S says, and you also did approve it on a storage building for the church.
Yeah.
About 2 years ago, so
Okay.
For security reasons.
Did they raise the one or lower the other?
I think they lowered the one
Lowered
to
one.
The
to
one
the
on the
left.
They lowered this one here.
Yeah, so aesthetically, it looks better that way.
and they're standard height doors.
Yeah, so I'd say leave that one. How do you feel about it?
Yep.
Are these all the same, right? That and that one and that one, right?
Yeah.
Consensus is to leave them.
Okay.
You talk about trim now concealed with stucco on the bottom edge here, that trim piece, right?
Yeah.
To be honest with you guys, I can't even see it.
Okay, what is this? I'm sorry.
Right here, Hank.
Yeah, I see it.
Right there.
Yes.
See above the drainage?
Yeah.
See on the drainage line?
Yeah, right there.
There was it's now just flush.
Go back up. to
And
the
it was
top.
what? And
It was recessed on top of the drainage. See, it was recessed?
Oh, I got it.
Oh, okay. Is it, so it's not
So that was filled in flush.
They filled that in,
the
yeah.
bottom part, obviously?
Yeah.
And what was that filled in with?
It was filled in, you think they took that off and stuccoed it?
I think I don't think they took anything off. They just put something material over top of it and then
Well, then-
stuccoed over top of it.
But if they did that, then you wouldn't see, it would be flush with the top.
Well, what I'm saying-
Top piece, and it's not.
No, there's.
They built out the
That's
top
a,
piece.
see, that's
too.
that's a flat banding board. If
Yeah.
you look at the top one, it's really thin.
Because they
Can you
built it
scroll up a little bit,
out.
Christine, to the top picture?
They would have had to build this out because they filled this.
See, that's not as flat as that. That's like a smaller piece.
So
Right.
they could do the same
So I
thing
think
up here,
I think what they
basically.
filled all this in with stucco and
I know.
whatever material they needed to even out the surface.
You
But to be
know,
consistent with what we've already agreed to, we should have her remove it and
Yeah,
restore
and
the trim.
keep that indent because we're removing this to have the indent, to have that feature there.
I think we should keep what Alex said in mind, though. Is that going to open up water issues?
Something to consider too.
Yeah. We make the building look historic, and yet we're damaging it in the long run.
We don't want to
we-
risk the building's health.
Right, but we also, again, what we're suggesting is
Written in stone.
written in stone. We're providing that suggestion, and I would hope that with the suggestions, with what Alex said, that any of the suggestions, maybe a contractor or someone could weigh in on that change to say, well, hey, if you do that, that's going to create that option. And that can be part of the consideration in that aspect. But I don't know how the commission is they're going to rule. They're going to take these suggestions and they're going to weigh in with their opinion. But I would think maybe a discussion with their contractor to find if our suggestions are going to keep that building sound. And obviously, we don't want to do anything that's going to further damage the building with trying to maintain the architectural details of the building. So in any of our suggestions, let's put a caveat in there that this is our suggestion as long as it doesn't hurt the health of the building or compromise the structure or create a moisture packet, I don't know, a spot where water can gather and then
Well,
damage. I don't know. So,
you see this little band?
Mhm.
That's a water trap that she created.
But
already doing
yes,
that to
but
their
that water
building.
trap existed on the metal already.
Yeah.
With the metal beam.
But
that's
now she
already
put styrofoam there, and you know what styrofoam does? It keeps water.
Absorbs.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. So, anyway. But,
So, Mary, if you could, just maybe as we go through these, just put that caveat in there that's obviously,
It might under each.
well, not in general.
No.
In general, I would hope that, if these were our suggestions, and I'll say it again, this is a very, we're trying to do our best to get through this because this really isn't what this board was created to do. So we're trying to do something that has really never been done before. So.
If you wanted to state it at
No, I don't
the
think-
figure or
No.
at the end.
Well, I think that input from maybe even a historic type architect or contractor can look at it and say, well, if they're asking for that, if you do that, this would be the only way to do that, or if you do that, that's going to create a problem. So, I mean, I would hope that could be part of the scenario. So then the consensus is to put it back? Is that what the consensus was?
I don't care.
Or we haven't really, that was Tammy's suggestion. My suggestion is to remove it, to remove the trim piece to make it recessed again?
I don't go along with that, so
Okay.
it's 4-1.
I agree.
Agree? Okay. So, and also that's going to remove any material that was there previously. So when they put that recess in, it would have to be approved material. So the consensus is on that? Okay. So is that figure 10, we're done with the items, correct?
Yes.
We've gone through the items. All right. Well, let's take a second to let anybody else speak after those items. If anybody else would like to speak, please feel free to speak. Okay. Then, as we go back through one last time, let's go back through the items again and confirm that the consensus, if anybody has changed their mind or if anyone has wants to modify their opinion and would change the consensus on any of the items. So,
Excuse me, are we
Yeah.
having a consensus? In other words,
Well, we have a
4-1, 5-0, or?
Well, I mean,
Is Mary
not-
keeping track of who's dissenting? You haven't done that, right?
no, not really, but I
All right.
think that as we go through, I mean, we're going to know. I mean, so if anybody, figure 1, the consensus was,
Leave it.
no, figure 2.1, right?
No, that was to leave it.
The consensus was to leave it, but we're actually considering it's not a synthetic material. That is to keep that feature, but if it's a synthetic material, it needs to be replaced with approved material. Was the consensus on 2.1?
Well, no, it's 4-1. I get
Well, consensus, yeah, okay, that's fine. All right, so then 2.2, the consensus was to leave it alone except for the extension, to take off that extension and leave it, make it back to its original ending point above the, I think we're out of batteries. No, right there,
Windows.
right where the windows ended, right?
Yes.
We had a consensus on that. Is there anybody who now believes that they've changed their mind on that?
No.
No.
Okay, all right, moving forward then. 2.3, the concealed with stucco, the consensus was to somehow retain the separation between the two to resemble a separation in there. And again, these are suggestions, however, an architect would, or a contractor would need to accomplish that. It can be discussed with options. I think that we're just trying to convey our thoughts and the consensus that we're trying to retain the separation there.
All
Is
right,
that-
will options come back to us?
No.
Probably not. I don't think so. No, because it's out of our hands. Really, it's in the. Once the city council hears it, they're going to weigh on that appeal and may weigh on that appeal an item by item or as a whole. But it doesn't come back to us because there is no COA. There's nothing for us to hear.
Okay,
You know.
so if her contractor says can't be done, then it stays the way it is.
Well, it's up to the commission.
Well, it's up to the commission to decide that. I mean,
Right.
how they move forward with
Yeah.
how, they're going to, what the controls they're going to put in place to see what's done the way
Okay.
is really
So
going to
it's
be,
back on them, okay.
we're providing them suggestions on what we believe
Should be
can be
done.
done or could be,
Okay.
should be or could be done.
Okay, that's,
So the consensus stays on that item, 2.3. All right.
Yeah.
2.5,
Four.
4 and 5 together, right?
Right.
Was to remove the stucco exposing the existing or previously existing wood trim or feature there below the windows, keeping the stucco over top of the T111 on the south elevation. On the west elevation, removing the stucco below the windows, exposing the wood areas, but removing the stucco T111 and putting it back to storefront windows.
yes.
That was the consensus on that one.
Well, I'd like to change my, I don't think we should take the stucco off in the south elevation and put the trim back because of what Alex said, because that will open up
Yeah, it
to the
will.
elements. There's no way you're going to have a nice seal there. So if you can put trim over top of it somehow and make it look good, fine. But if you have to cut back the stucco and put wood in there, it's going to
Yeah.
be really difficult to seal.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, so do we want to change the consensus to say for this scenario, for that section, maybe
Some sort of band.
a conversation with the contractor to try to, or are we just gonna say, it is what it is and leave it?
How about this? We request architectural detail there without compromising the building by cutting into the stucco. If they can figure out a way of putting some architectural detail there.
Well, how about then if a contractor says, well, yeah, I can cut that out and put a seal between the two, and it wouldn't do that, is that acceptable? But
If he can guarantee that, but he's going to be gone, and 10 years from now, water's going to get behind there. That's my concern.
But you have to understand, right? Before, currently, there was plywood put in that spot, so the seal.
Yeah, but it was that wood was kind of overhanging,
Protruding, extruding
Yeah.
over the plywood, so
Yeah.
it wasn't creating a backdraft in there.
How about some type of an architectural detail that would look like the wood, only it's on top of this stucco?
Yeah, if it can be done, it looks right. It doesn't look like it's contrived.
With the proper material.
No ephes.
But is that getting into, again, adding a layer,
Designing,
getting
Well,
into
then it's
Layering on
redesigning?
top
redesigning
of
the
it, yeah.
building.
Yeah,
You know what?
I kind of lean toward Ann's original suggestion to leave it at this
Just
point.
leave it there and just have her change out the west side and bring back the detail there.
Oh. Anna, what do you think?
Leave it be.
Okay, so then we're changing the consensus on that.
Leaving the south
Well, I'll redo the whole thing. We're going to leave the south elevation as is. As far as 2.4, 2.5 are concerned. As far as the front west elevation, we are removing all of the stucco. All the stucco, exposing those wood under the transoms, replacing it with the storefront windows, and bringing it that, so.
You're removing the stucco wood and replacing it on with
Well,
glass.
yeah, no, the framing underneath the wood,
Do you mean it's the storefront in the
yeah, the storefront, yeah.
Ian, based on what you just said, then item 3 would need to be revisited for the west elevation as well?
Because you mentioned transom,
Yeah,
the front.
so, the 3, obviously. Then then the consensus on 3 would be the separation on the transoms for just the south elevation, but not on the west elevation, because we're with the storefront windows. Are we requesting? Should we be requesting transom windows being put back in? If we're going to do storefront windows, why would we have stucco on top of it? And those patches where, if we're going to ask her to replace that section with storefront windows, then the character and style is to replace the transom windows above it, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Wrong way.
Yeah. So I think that what we need to do is
Number 3.
number 3. The modification of number 3 is applicable only for the south elevation, and when we talk about 2.4 and 5, and then include 3, isn't applicable on the west, because 2.4 and 5 supersede that, and saying that we're going to request that the front west elevation be stucco removed and storefront windows put in and the transoms replaced that are in character and style with correct materials and that aspect. Is that a little clearer? Does that make sense to everybody? Anybody want to give me any secret nods or winks or shaking of heads or no? Okay. Then we're going 2.5, then where would I go? 6. 6 was, we're leaving it. Everybody okay with that? That's that. Okay, 7, we were leaving it.
Yes.
We're okay with that. 8 was the shuttered windows, we're okay with that.
Yeah.
9 was the doors, we were okay with that. And 10 is only going to be applicable for, if I'm modifying, is only really applicable for the south elevation, because those will not exist on the front
Well, no,
elevation, right?
no, it would still be on the, it's on the west side too.
Okay, so that's included on south and west, so no modification to that one.
Trim, add the
Right.
trim.
No modification to 2.10.
2.10 you're leaving as is?
Yes,
Okay, gotcha.
because it covers the south and west.
Yeah.
We're not doing
Yeah.
the trim.
Okay, well, that's the consensus on all those items. So I hopefully that fulfills the request from City Council on all those items. Is there anything now that we've finished our consensus? I'll give anybody the opportunity to discuss on this before we close this PM and move on.
Well,
Other business?
we need to talk about any EFS that's on that building.
Well, I guess my opinion is, in any of the work that's being done where we're asking anything to be removed or modified or changed, if any unapproved material exists, that's going to be removed. Or if it gets exposed in the process of making the suggestions, obviously it would have to be. I don't think that we can say, remove any unapproved material if it's already behind stucco. We don't know exists where it exists, because that's just not really what we're doing with this exercise. Is if we can find it, if we see where it's at, then obviously, and this is my opinion, but I don't know how we can.
Right.
Without
chipping or starting to.
We can't. We're
I know
not
what it
asking.
is, but okay.
But we're not asking her to pull all the stucco off the whole building and then expose what's there and then determine whether it's.
It is what it is.
Speak, Anna.
I don't want to.
No, Anna.
No, it's all right.
You have an opinion,
It's okay.
please.
It's okay.
If we're not seeing
No,
something
I
that you
think
would.
you're right. My fear in this whole thing is we are opening
No.
a can of, oh yeah, we
No,
are.
we're not, because it's.
Sit back, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have a lot more of these. Yes,
Lonnie
we are.
said,
Yeah, we
Lonnie
are.
said this does not set a precedent, and we have new procedures in place. Am I right?
Well,
Knew she could not use EFS, and she did, and I am not a happy camper
well,
about
I
that.
tell you, the secret to all of this is the building department and
Yeah.
the powers that be need to keep an eagle eye
Right.
on any construction that goes on in the district to prevent this from happening again.
Okay. I remind you all
And
when
I-
we're here again
but
talking
again-
about the same thing.
But I also do want to remind the board that that any suggestion that we've made tonight doesn't counteract our rendering of a violation. We are not stating in this circumstance that we were mistaken or we were wrong in the judgment that we gave. That's not what this is about. That violation is what it is. That when that applicant was here, that's what we rendered is what we rendered. What we were asked to do is go through each item of where we can visually see a violation and provide a potential scenario. So, be that as it may, if there exists material that is unapproved material and it can't be exposed in what we've just been given, then, unfortunately it's out of our hands. It's no longer in front of us. It's now will be in front of the City Commission. Okay, so then PM4 is complete. It's now, we'll go to 6-month reviews and the minor reviews.
No.
And again, we don't need to vote on those. If you just have any questions, please ask staff about those. Anybody, any questions on the, for no 6 months, so just the minors. So do you want to move forward to code enforcement case review? Please.
Christine, I have a question. Has Smiling Bison come before you for signage? Because right now, all they have is a banner up hanging from where Marco Dino's used to be.
I would have to look at that file. I don't recall.
Okay.
I know we discussed signage. I don't remember if there was ever a survey done.
Okay.
Is it a banner or a canvas drop?
Canvas.
Just like Marco Dino's used to have.
Yeah, but I'm assuming, but right now they've just got something that's about this big that's just clipped
Okay, so
up
it's just
there.
a
Clipped
banner.
up, yeah, it's a banner. Now open or something like that, it says.
No, that wasn't approved.
Oh, I figured it was temporary. I just wondered if they come. And also, the Bishop Building, have the engineers gotten back with you on a plan yet?
I've heard nothing.
Russ?
I have a voice message that I received just before this meeting from the contractor. I haven't listened to it, but it was on my email before I came down. This is from Beacon Bay.
Well, is it 6 months yet since they've gotten their violation?
I don't know if that's on the report.
Well, could we possibly get an email from you after you read the email and let us know?
Absolutely.
If it's been 6 months, I'd like to request that you start the proceedings with sending them to the magistrate. Because, again, it's a safety issue. I don't see it on here. What building is 121 West First Street? The unpermitted signs?
21 West First.
121, 129.
Yeah. Which building is that?
Oh, okay.
It's 121 to 129.
Yeah.
That's the building where the Princess Theater was.
Okay.
The
They get
Sandwich
Zorbas,
spinners.
Zorbas and all that, Colonial Room and all that stuff.
No,
No.
that's the
No.
next street. This
Oh,
is the Princess
got it.
Theater, so Christo's and the
CrossFit.
next building
Christo's,
to the
CrossFit,
west.
sandwich place, right?
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Tony's Deli's on the corner.
Christine, can you check on a COA when you get a chance for 1209 Oak?
Okay. And what was the work for?
I think it looked like they were replacing the porch. Didn't get a good look. I didn't want to obviously stare as I walked by, but I was pretty sure it was porch being redone. I didn't see anything in the windows, any signs or notices or anything.
Anything else on these? Okay, we'll move to, I think we did citizen participation already. We can move to staff reports.
Okay, one question that was posed by Lonnie Groot was in regards to the upcoming June meeting. And his question is, can that meeting be moved to a week prior? So instead of having the meeting on June 15th, he's proposing rescheduling that meeting to the Wednesday prior, which is June 8th. The reason he's proposing that is he has a conflict for that day, actually I believe for that week. And so if you all want him to be present at the HPB meeting, that is the only way he could do it.
He doesn't have a substitute?
We're busy in June.
At my calendar, June calendars.
I booked 6 months out.
I don't know.
I'm fine.
I don't mind.
Fine
Yeah.
moving it? Everybody?
Hopefully, we'll get reminded.
Okay, we'll move it.
I'll never
then.
remember that.
Only the extra email, please, to remind us.
Some extra emails.
Yeah, a couple extra
It's
emails.
being moved.
To June 8th, 1 week prior.
Okay.
Then the only other thing that I had was I wanted to say that I had the pleasure of going to Cheryl's cottage yesterday, and I am just blown away by the work that they've done there. And Cheryl should be commended because every property that she and Wayne buy, they make beautiful, absolutely beautiful. It's magazine worthy. So I just wanted to say that.
Kudos.
I hope that
Yeah.
everybody gets an
Great job,
opportunity to see
Cheryl.
it.
I want
because
to stay
it's
there.
really impressive. I was in that.
Gotta get
Price is right.
Go ahead. I'm listening.
Thank you.
I was in that house right after the magician had passed away, and it was terrible. I mean, moving furniture out of that house, the furniture was crumbling as it was being moved, and there was so much inside that house that it was just like tunnels. It was a mess. So, I mean, it's just a really phenomenal job that
You
they've
need
done.
to invite Steve Myers to see it.
He's coming by tomorrow. So, thank you. Wayne did a great job. He did all the carpentry.
Good job, Wayne.
Nice
Way to
job.
go. Kudos, Wayne.
Yo, Wayne. Thanks, guys.
The budget is just a suggestion.
Yeah.
Just a starting point.
To start the discussion, huh?
That's always the way it ends up being.
That's funny.
Now I think they just need to buy the 2 duplexes on 12th and Myrtle.
We're finished.
Amen.
Yeah, you're not
We are
gonna-
finished.
You're not going to buy the house behind us, the one on the corner that was in the probate for a little mini house?
Somebody is.
That's
It's pending.
Oh,
Pending already, yeah.
It was
Yeah,
pending
that's
like 3 days
Maria
later.
Shreveport.
Oh, yeah? Nice.
Okay.
That'd be nice.
That's the only thing that I had.
Okay.
Okay, the next business, obviously, it's January, so it's time to elect a chairperson and a vice chairperson. So
Well,
we,
Do you want to keep going, or?
no, I was just going to say we'll start with electing a chairperson.
So I just wanted to say that you have done a phenomenal job as chair. You're very fair. You keep the meeting going. You keep us in line, which is really hard to do, for me anyway. And I would like to make a motion to nominate you as chair again.
Thank you. Well, there's a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on that? No? Okay, thank you. Okay, so chair is retained. Now, next is vice chairman. Do you have any nominations for vice chairman?
I'd like to nominate Anna Yebba.
No, you won't.
Okay. We have a nomination for Anna. Is there a second for that nomination?
I'll second.
Okay. We have a
we get a
nomination and a
vote?
second. You can decline the nomination if you like. So
How long is it for?
1 year.
Okay, I'll do it.
Look at the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, nomination passes. New vice chairman, congratulations.
Is there any we can, I'd like to know how much longer I'm
Yeah, we have that.
privileged to serve
We,
on this.
Now
Mary
that
actually
you
has
did
that.
that to me,
Yeah.
you want to know how much longer you have. You're going to
Oh,
stay.
and you've been me all night.
Yeah. That's why I had talking so weird.
Thank you.
Thank you.
When am I up?
Oh, thank you.
Oh, so I'm up this year.
Wow, Mary.
Okay.
Yeah, but your term limit's to here.
So I have one more year?
On your,
that right?
on your current term? On the current term, yeah. But you can do 3 terms consecutive.
Oh, really?
Do 3 consecutive.
Who's this mean?
I need to save something for my retirement.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, no kidding. So stop and then come back and do it,
That's
right?
how long you can stay on.
We can get back on.
2020. Yeah, so you can do one more.
Creepy.
You can do
What's
one
this
more
say?
term.
What does that mean?
How long you can be here.
And I think the reason why Hank's
Yeah.
is different on here is because an ordinance had
Yeah,
been
I know.
passed.
If you only get 3.
What was
Right,
that?
the ordinance, yeah, Hank had a year and a half from 2006 to
Oh.
2007, but the ordinance
Okay.
changed.
Nice.
Oh, okay.
So they're really only counting the 7 to 12 and then the 12 to 16.
It's
Gotcha.
For full terms.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I still think a full term is 3 years or more, because Anna's came in at the end of one, so really your first term's only going to be 3.5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, is there anything else? Anybody else? Okay, then that concludes this meeting. Thank you, everyone.